Hey guys, welcome to Pop 401 Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things nerd culture. I am Ireland, and this is my co host.
Carlos, what's up, y'all?
Oh, you're included in this stream? We actually have a
Oh.
third in the house. We like to welcome to this little episode podcast of the one, the only, Katy LaGray.
Katy the
Welcome
Gray.
back.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
All right. So this podcast we want to talk about with all this Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. We're gonna break that. Oh, look at this face already. We know where this is going. We decided to bring into an expert.
Yep, subject matter expert.
A Tolkien expert. We phoned a friend.
I'd like to be a scholar eventually. I know you have to jump through quite a bit of hoops. I have to study more, but
You have to go on many more adventures.
all
Well, I
right.
mean, subject matter expert. The name Katy
LaGray.
LaGray.
Do
The
that
Gray.
Gandalf on my shirt.
Yeah,
What's to say?
Keep on token. So everybody
you know,
has
Gandalf
to,
is into that weed.
Yeah, dude. Everybody has to toke
That's
for
what
me.
the pipe is for.
That's exactly what it's for. What do
Exactly.
they call it?
It's old Toby.
Yes.
Old Toby.
Mhm.
The love of the halfling's leaf has clearly clouded your mind.
The halfling's leaf. That's, you know what? Somebody should come up with a strain and call it the halfling's leaf.
They
That would
probably
be
already
amazing.
have.
There is a long bottom leaf already. I've smoked it.
And
It sure is weed. That's sure does get you high.
But did Gandalf come and take you on an adventure? Not that type of psychedelic.
I was gonna say, I think we're talking about peyote. You got it. I was not in the forest eating mushrooms. No.
With NT.
No. Although, hopefully for my next adventure, we'll see.
so
For your second breakfast.
There we go.
I'm
Instead
curious.
of lambus bread.
Oh, I have a spread. I'm curious. What is your favorite book out of the Lord of the Rings series?
Out of the three of them,
Mm-hmm.
like just the three.
The OG 3.
Plot thickens.
I'll say Return of the King because it's not as slow. Because as much as the books are really cool, they're only cool if you like context. The way they're written is, I mean, he was so intelligent, but they're incredibly descriptive. So if you don't like overly descriptive things, I mean, the Fellowship takes fucking forever to take off. And then in the second book, that whole, can't remember the area is, but if you think like the movies when they're in the Rocky, dude, they're there forever and it's boring as all hell. So Return of the King has more.
So it's
going
like
on.
essentially reading the book of Genesis and the Bible where it's like Abraham begot this person for literally it feels like 9 fucking
Yes.
chapters. I don't even know
And
who
above the
sired
firmament, he
what.
divided the firmament, and the firmament, and it's like, I get it, it's a tree. I get it. It wasn't a tall tree. It was a broad tree, a wide tree, a green tree. It's like, it's a fucking tree.
What were you saying, Ireland? It's written in proper English. Is that what you said last
Pure
time?
Oxford English.
Oxford English.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. So this day and age, trying to read, which is it's considered a classic. Not only the context of the literature, but and the way it's actually written. To be quite honest with you, anything in those eras, you'll see a lot of it with poetry, with Edgar Allan Poe. You'll see it with Emily
Mhm.
Dickinson. You'll see it's literally written in the pure Oxford English, or if you go to London, they would call it the Queen's English. So it's very properly put. It's very formal. The formalities. There's no slang to it. There's no shortening because, or it's not the TikTok terminology. So it would be a little hard for somebody of the newer generations to go back and read it to actually fully grasp and understand it, just because of how thick it is on the tongue. Like when you try to read it, you know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
is.
I'm trying to be intelligent.
I know.
I'm not talking about
Look who you're
this.
talking to. You invited me here.
No,
It's like a vampire. You're
no-
invited.
no regrets, right?
No regrets.
But it's one of those things where it's just so formally descriptive and it's formally written. I mean, again, it's why it's considered a classic, because nobody speaks like that unless you're in the aristocrat side of London, of Buckingham Palace. So it's a very old, ancient, bougie ass fucking language. So
He was kind of bougie.
he was very
Like,
bougie.
he was a little low-key bougie. For sure.
He was very on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Bougie. You get to that where you're so intelligent mentally that it's literally like anything is like below you at that point because you could pretty much out talk and outright anyone.
yeah.
So
I mean, he told C.S. Lewis, that's cute. You should try again. When he presented
Damn.
Narnia to him.
Really?
They were good
Oh,
friends. They were
man.
really good friends. But yeah, he
He's like,
presented Narnia and
it's
he's like,
nowhere near as
That's
deep
cute. I
as
mean,
Lord of the
it's-
Rings.
That's nice. That's a good children's book, you know. I mean, The Hobbit was actually written to be a children's book. Honestly, that's why when you read it, it has a lot more songs. It's really playful. It's a complete.
it's a lighter
It's a complete
feel to
story.
it.
Yeah, it's a
Mm.
complete story. Yeah.
But it's Tolkien's version of it, so it's still fucking proper and heavily
Oh
detailed
yeah.
as fuck.
Oh yeah.
But the energy and the aura around it was more like, oh yay, we're kids, happy-go-lucky type of thing to it.
Yeah.
It's Tolkien's version of a kid's book.
hmm
It's
I-
considered adult literature nowadays because
Yeah.
a lot of people can't get through the first chapter of it going, what does this mean? What does this say? I mean, that says a lot for our
Yeah.
society.
Can't
on
people can't even
educational.
read cursive?
Oh my god,
anymore.
yeah.
They
people-
can't even read an analog clock.
People don't know
Let's
how
talk
to
about
write in
this.
cursive.
Yeah.
They
read
actually
cursive, write
started
cursive.
reteaching it back in schools.
Really interesting.
Yeah. But you know how you can paralyze a whole generation, right? Give them a manual instead of an automatic transmission. Give them only analog clocks, not the digital ones that tell you the time, and write everything in cursive. And you will watch a whole generation be utterly handicapped. Oh, and then
Big rip.
take the calculators away. So they have to learn how to count back
Oh,
physical money.
damn.
You know how many
Why?
times I go to a con where I say kids, people younger than me, just hand me a wad of money and go, I don't know how much this is. You just count it, give me back the change.
Oh my god. Okay.
Wow. You can just totally take advantage of that.
That's.
You're
I
like,
mean,
oh,
I'm not-
there's
I'm
sorry,
not-
there's no
I'm
change.
not going to, but
I
I'm
couldn't
just
do it.
like,
I'm too honest.
Yeah, are you?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
too
stupid
honest.
honest.
Yeah.
But if
It's
you're
her
like
fault.
Gandalf, are you truly too honest? Hmm?
I mean, you did fall from the fucking sky.
No. That's just if we want to start on reasons why I'm not fond of Rings of Power. That's certainly a good segue.
I remember we had this conversation a month ago. And I was telling you, I was like, oh, have you watched it yet? And you were like, no. And I said, okay, from a cinematic approach, without reading Tolkien's books, right? So let's say that, like, I've only read, to be honest with you, I haven't read all three. I've watched the movies, like,
Just
in
listen to
depth and stuff,
audiobook.
but I haven't actually read the books. I can't do audiobooks, but I
Mhm.
haven't read them yet because it's something I just want to savor, and I just don't want to be traveling. I don't want to be doing cons. I don't want to be doing a lot of like heavy work projects.
Mhm.
I just want to be able to savoring in the world because I do know it's written richly. Like it's
Oh, and
very,
you actually have to read over and over again.
Oh, I do, but
just to
it-
make sure that you didn't miss anything.
It's true because
Right, 'cause
I've gone
it's
through it
so-
several
it's-
times, and you always pick up other things.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's heavily detailed. So I haven't read the books, but I told you from a just cinematic point of view, saying that you don't know anything but the previous Lord of the Rings movies and you don't know anything about the Rings of Power, it was a decent show. If you had read the books and you were hardcore Tolkien, it better be by the book, you're going to find Rings of Power cringe as fuck.
Egregious.
So you're gonna
horrendous.
you're gonna find it literally aggravating and repulsive, and you're gonna be like offended, appalled by a lot of the things.
I've used those actual
Offended,
adjectives actually
appalled.
while watching it.
the
whilst-
audacity.
Whilst watching it with my
But-
partners, was
but-
greatly offended.
I have to say though, given the fact that Rings of Power is yeah, again, we're talking about the works of Tolkien and how in depth he writes, you're going to have to make changes to capture modern day audience because I get it. I don't think it was a love letter to the fans. I think it was just, hey, the Lord of the Rings made money off these movies. Let's throw a TV series.
Which is why
I feel like it was a cash grab.
100%.
I don't think it was a love letter to true Tolkien fans.
No.
Well, how are you going to do stories from the Silmarillion without the rights to the Silmarillion? That doesn't make any sense. Then don't do it. Like, very plain and simple. Because the whole reason why people loved Lord of the Rings was because even though it did stray from the book for obvious reasons. People,
Time reasons.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm Tom Bombadil. Like, what are you gonna just throw this like crazy godlike character in and then just be like, all right, we're not gonna talk about him anymore. It's fine. He could take the ring, but he's not gonna do it, So it's fine. Just ignore that part. Like, obviously, if you put that in the movies, people are gonna be like, what the fuck? So I get it. But Rings of Power is so incredibly off, even going by the movies. Like, I understand timeline events are so weird, and you're trying to portray. Let's take Galadriel and Elrond, for example, who are. It's hard to
Badass
say.
characters.
Yeah, they're fantastic characters, two of the most powerful and wise elves in Middle Earth. But
There's so much history with them.
Yes.
there's a lot of history with them, and you know what really pisses me off is how they're trying to make. You know what really grinds my gears?
Pisses me off is fine. I like that.
Yeah, it's the fact that they keep trying to allude to this like love that they have between each other. Elrond marries her daughter. That's his mother-in-law. So it's weird that you're gonna make it like, oh yeah,
He's
hey,
all, what's up?
Galadriel, what's up? Like,
I don't know,
no,
maybe he was just keeping it in the family.
bruh.
Maybe
Bruh, this ain't Game of Thrones.
Hey,
This
maybe-
ain't Game of
Hey,
Thrones.
maybe Middle Earth is in Arkansas.
Elves are
What
incestuous.
you mean,
Who knows? Arkansas.
Right, Arkansas.
Canceled. By the whole state of Arkansas. I'm banned. I
You're
can't
not-
You're
return.
done.
You're
You're
not
done.
missing much.
That's okay. I drove through
You're
it
done.
twice, and I
I didn't stop once. I'm scared for my life.
had to pee. But,
I'll pee in a cup.
my Puerto Rican boyfriend was in the car, so I made it quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asking for it.
I got a tiny bladder. You gotta go, bro.
I would have parked like 5 miles and just down the road and just told him to just lay the seat back and duck.
Yeah, right.
You're better off with that. But yeah,
It was
I mean-
daytime.
Ooh, worse. They could see him.
So, what do you think of like? I'm curious. You love Gandalf, right? Obviously.
So much.
I
Wearing-
mean,
wearing the shirt.
obviously here. Get off the gray, get off the white.
So, do you think Gandalf is on par with Sauron in terms of power?
He's more powerful.
So, why did he not just abuse
Sauron?
Sauron and end him?
Because, well, there's a few reasons, actually. Do you want like the technical reasons?
Give me the technical reasons. This
Okay.
is why we have the SME here.
Oh, okay.
Subject
I mean, we're
matter
probably
expert.
gonna get called out on fucking TikTok anyway.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
Suck it.
I'm sure that I'm gonna miss pieces or butcher it in my layman's ways of putting it. But
More
so
lambda spread for you.
Or Lampus Fred.
so so the Valar gave, so you have the Five Astari, right? The wizards,
Mhm.
right? So they were all given a task. Gandalf was sent, he actually was the last to arrive in Middle Earth. Their tasks were to act as a guide to the people of Middle Earth, essentially for them to kind of solve their own problems. Sauron was really powerful, but he wanted to be powerful, right? Gandalf didn't want to be that. And he was afraid of Sauron. Like, he straight up said to the Valar, I don't want to go to Middle-earth because I'm afraid. And they basically told him that's exactly why you need to go. It's actually kind of interesting because when he arrives in Middle-earth, he does not fall from the sky. He actually comes from a ship.
I was like, he shows up on a ship.
Yeah, he shows up on a ship from Valinor, and he's greeted by Círdan, who you get to see in Rings of Power, which is really cool. Really old dude, been around for a long time, right? And he has one of the Elven power, right?
So he didn't like drop down like a meteor?
He did not.
Oh,
I know.
man.
In that
Less-
superhero pose when they drop.
Right?
Yeah, it's less
He literally like
cool.
Superman when he like falls and like from the crane.
But then suddenly doesn't know anything, and he knew everything. He knew, like,
he's
knew,
amnesia.
He knows why
He hit
he's
his
there.
head. He hit his head.
Fucking get out of my face with that shit.
So he didn't know why he doesn't know why he's here.
Not in Rings of Power, but he knows why,
He knows
he's,
why
there
he's there
in
in
the
the
book.
books,
So
yeah.
when he arrives, Círdan actually gives him his ring upon arrival. Sauron, fires of industry and destruction, right? Well, Gandalf now has the flame ring, the flame of Arnor. It's like Anor, and I can't speak.
It's okay.
And
We know you have like bronchitis, so
yeah.
and laryngitis.
I know.
All the
I've
itis.
got the
You got the
You've
itis.
had a
itis.
lot of things in your throat, so I get it.
She's got the itis, y'all.
It's my fault. I was asking for it. But yeah, so he gives him the flame ring, so he has the fires of kindling. So it's kind of this interesting, like,
That's what she said.
he is sexy. I'm not gonna lie.
Gandalf's got the riz, boy. He's got that wizard riz.
He's so good.
He does
So-
got that big stick.
But it's not his mission. Essentially, at the end of the day, it's not his mission. But he is the most powerful of the Astari. And he is the only one that stays 100% true to his quest. Like, he literally dies for his quest. He dies. Well, he doesn't really die, but his body is essentially
Reincarnated.
destroyed when he fights the Balrog. So
Mhm.
and then his spirit's sent back to Valinor, and they're like,
You're not done yet.
Round 2.
yeah, boy. Yeah, so they send his ass back.
It's like Mortal Kombat. You're going back.
Yeah, it's actually, so what's interesting is when he comes back as Gandalf the White, it's not that he's more powerful, it's that the Valar gave him permission
To
to
use
use more
his-
of his power.
To fuck shit up.
Yeah,
If
so
need be.
so that's why, like,
He's unleashed.
yeah, well, he's following his orders as he's supposed to do, unlike Sauron, who went against orders. So he's using all of his power. Everything you see is everything
He's got it all, yeah.
But Gandalf is holding back because that's what he's supposed to do.
So if you were to use D&D alignment, where does Gandalf sit?
Ooh. You know what's interesting? I was just having a discussion with Kay about all the different specs for D&D, and we had a whole discussion about true neutral and chaotic neutral and all that shit. I would say that he's probably, I would say, leaning more towards chaotic good, neutral good to chaotic good, because I think he's willing to stray from the rules for the greater good.
I was gonna say for the good of the people.
Right, but
Like,
it
he'll
depends
do
on
it, but
which
it-
rules you're talking about,
Right.
right? Because it's like, if you're talking about the people of Middle Earth, he's definitely chaotic good. But if you're talking about in, like, reference to the Valar, he's more neutral good, I would say.
Yeah, that it's 100%.
Yeah.
Because he's going to protect the people, because that's what his mission is.
That's his job.
So he's going to be chaotic if it needs to be, because at the end of the day, if you're going to harm the people, then he's going to step in and fuck shit up, because that's what he's supposed to do.
Mhm.
But when it comes, like you were saying, the other way, then it would definitely be neutral. Be like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're not a threat. You're not doing anything that goes against what my mission is. So
Mhm.
it's more neutral.
He's like a seed planter. He'll plant ideas.
He's
in
not a
people.
farmer.
He's a seed planter. y'all.
Gandalf the farmer. Yeah.
I can
Gandalf the
see
farmer.
that. You know,
Yeah.
in his
Next time he's-
retirement, goes back to Valinor.
Next time he's
plows
screaming
Fucking
fields.
about
just plowing fields.
cabbages. No.
But he's
In
he
his
won't
next
hesitate.
life.
He won't hesitate to lie if he needs to, or like not lie, but
He's
like
not
not tell the whole
conniving.
truth.
Yeah, he doesn't.
But he'll withhold information.
He will. He'll
doesn't
withhold
lie, but
information.
he is
Because he's
withholding.
not gonna give everything on a silver platter. He's gonna make you work for it.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have literally. I mean, he probably is gonna know the future. He would know how the adventure fucking worked out for the Hobbits.
Well, I mean, he could
Would
have. He
agree
could
with
have
the
easily
ring,
gone into.
But he didn't. He didn't. He was just there to help guide through the mission, like a shepherd to the sheep.
Mhm.
But he's not there to intervene until until he had to step in where the Balrog was going to take them off their quest. He had to step in because it was going to go.
Well, I mean,
it's
it
going to
was-
affect the
The
mission.
Balrogs are extremely powerful.
Right,
so-
but it's going to affect the mission. I feel
They're
like.
would-
corrupted Maiar, if I'm not
yeah, that
mistaken.
Balrog would have
Yep.
torched everybody in that whole place. It would have been done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Gandalf had to step in. He had no choice but to.
Yeah, because I mean, everything had to be seen.
It's for the mission.
He knew that it was going to be seen through. He just had to take this step, and I mean, like you said, he was willing to sacrifice his physical body at that point to see the mission through. So, yeah, I would definitely say the chaotic neutral.
Yeah. He's such a good character. I love him so much. He's he's always doing shit. There's never idle time. He's always
I think he's got a
moving.
little bit of the
That's-
tiz.
I think so.
Probably.
I think he's got tiz. I think he's seriously.
I mean,
got a lot of
yeah.
tiz.
what is, let's say, hypothetically, let's spin this down some conspiracy wormhole. What if Tolkien literally wrote himself as Gandalf?
There's theories that Tolkien wrote himself as Tom Bombadil.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah, there's like fan theories about like that was Tolkien's way of putting himself in, or that Tom Bombadil's actually God. There's a whole bunch of cool theories about it.
Maybe the fact that like Tolkien had like a fucked up sense of humor where it was like, haha, like
Hmm.
funny little things into it. I mean, I could definitely see that.
I mean, he poured himself into the world essentially. I mean, you
he
know what I
even wrote
mean.
the whole language.
He wrote the language
Yeah,
first.
which is
he's like,
wild.
I'm gonna write this language. You know,
He
this is
definitely was
cool.
on the
Maybe I should build a
spectrum.
world for it. Yeah. Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Also, like, definitely like closeted bisexual for sure.
Oh yeah,
He loved his wife very much, but
you could definitely tell there's some yaoi to him.
there's some power of friendship, a little bromancy.
Oh, he went down the bromance route.
I feel like
lot.
we're in a My Little Pony episode here now with the bromance.
But everything was bromance, right? Like think about Legolas and
kind
Lee.
of.
He was not great at writing strong female characters. There's a handful of them, and the ones that he did write were fantastic, but there's like 3 of them.
But you have to
Ever.
understand,
And most of them were in
they're-
support of.
They're either like again, they're the submissive
Yes.
meek. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of like stand up when they feel like their loved ones are being threatened. They'll take charge when they need to be, but other than that, they kind of just like side supporting or a supporting type thing. But actually, like I don't ever see like Tolkien putting in ever anywhere where there'd be like a Joan of Arc figure. Does that make sense? Like there's nobody like that strong in the literature that I've ever seen, no matter what race that he put in. I didn't see that type of strong female, which if you look at the time of which Tolkien was around in the
It makes
writings,
sense.
it was not existed in culture. Women who were brash and upfront and not powerful were outcast. They weren't allowed in society because you didn't follow to the norms, which was to be seen and not heard, to be strong only when when loved ones are threatened. So I think it has a lot to go with that, but also where Tolkien was based out of. I mean, it was very much they were into sleeping with the gardeners. Does that make sense? Like you have to understand though, like how many of the English, Spanish, and French monarchy were literally, they might have been married with queens,
Oh,
but they
dude,
definitely had, their own version of male concubines.
I'm
Like
sure.
it was definitely a thing.
it was a
So
For
feast.
sure.
I mean, if you go to Italy, no, I mean, there's some cultures where it's still, acceptable for men to be bi.
So who would you think the most badass character is in the Tolkien universe?
Oh God, we already know this answer.
Well, I mean, Gandalf. Duh.
Gandalf.
But if I had to pick,
The gray or the white?
I like the gray.
I mean, because
I like
there's
Gandalf
a lot of
the Grey
badass
because
characters,
he's-
though. Like, I mean,
Well, so here's the thing. Gandalf the Grey, he's Gandalf the Grey for most of his time in Middle Earth. He comes in like, I don't know,
The
year,
last-
I want to say like year 2000 something of the Second Age, or I'm sorry, of the Third Age. So he's really only in Middle Earth for like, I don't know, at most like 1,000
He's
years,
not even
maybe,
in that long
maybe
for the
1,500.
time range.
No,
No.
he's really not. So, but
I would say at
pretty
least
much all
80,
of that time up until the last
85%.
6 months of his like time, or
Yeah,
last
so-
couple years, I guess.
So what? 85%, 90%? He's literally getting off the gray.
Yeah, because
it's only towards the end.
where he becomes
Yeah, I
white.
want to say there
he
was
becomes
maybe
the
like
wife.
6 months left of their journey, and then when they finish destroying the ring, there's 2 years before they sail off to Valinor. So literally, of the 1,000 years, there's 2 years that he's Gandalf the White. So I would say Gandalf the Gray. Also, I like him. He's a little spicier. I love me a little spicy.
Well, who would
Gandalf.
you say the most badass female character is then in the Tolkien universe?
And we're not talking about Rings of Power.
No.
We're
In
not
the
talking about
books.
the movies. We're talking about the books.
That's a good question.
Let's do it off race.
Well, I mean,
That's
there's,
sticky.
Well,
no,
I mean,
mean,
you got like the
the elves are fucking
Well,
badass.
okay,
Tolkien
are
wrote the elves like
I get that, but I'm
incredibly
saying
badass.
like
I can't remember their names, but there's a store.
again, Tolkien didn't make him like that
I
super
know.
strong. So
I
he's
know.
like stand up.
I like the love story. Do you remember? Did you read the Silmarillion, or do you know that
Mm-mm.
works?
I
do
know
you
the
it?
works, but I
I
didn't
read-
read it.
Okay, so there's.
read it.
Do you guys like remember like the story arc where Sauron was a werewolf for a bit?
Mhm.
Okay. And there was the elf that went to fight him after he kidnapped like his woman. Do you know what I'm talking about? I know that she's
I
not
don't
really
remember.
that significant, but I like that story a lot. So I gravitate towards that. Also, if I had to pick like any being, again, I can't fucking remember the name, but the Queen of the Valar, she's like the Queen of Stars. She's the one
Oh.
that the elves worship. She's
well, I
like-
mean,
the
that's
most
a
beautiful
celestial
being.
being, dude.
yeah, well, yeah, but if you say like any being,
She's a what they call it, a celestial Disney.
Yeah.
deity. She's
Deity.
fucking badass, dude. It's just,
Yeah.
that's next tier.
So
That's God tier.
I like that.
She sparkles in the sun.
I like.
You don't like any of the elves? You don't think there's any badass
Yeah, I mean,
female elf characters?
mean,
I mean,
there
there's gonna
are.
be like Arwen.
Toriel. No, I'm kidding. I mean,
Hey, she was cool for like the 2
Arwen's
seconds.
actually, but like she's like not even. She's not even. She doesn't even do anything in the books.
Well,
Arwen.
she just like, ah,
I know.
but
I'm
Daddy,
pretty.
I love him.
Yeah,
I feel like it's very much a 16. I mean, even though she's like 2,000-year-old,
and has known Aragorn since he was a toddler.
because again,
fucking
well, he's like
groomer.
20 and she's
Groomer.
like 2,000, and she's like, but Daddy, I love him, and I'm like, I think we've seen this recently in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Groomer,
I will
that's
say I want to
amazing.
go back to the Tariel thing. She would have been really cool if they didn't make her someone's love interest. They completely devalued her character when they made her someone's love
Again?
interest, because now she's no longer just this bad bitch, right?
She's somebody's side piece.
Exactly.
And I hate when they do
fucking
that.
hate
I
that.
hate when they do that. I think that's what made, going back to this and like sidetracking this, but I think that's what made Xena, the Xena, the Princess
Warrior
Warrior.
Princess.
I think that's what made her so badass, was because they didn't make her like, she didn't have a side piece. You know what I mean? She had like,
She had a sidekick, but
well,
she
she
didn't
had
have like a
Gabrielle,
love
but
interest.
it was just like, it was like, it was like, could they be lesbians, or was it like just like, you know what I mean? Like, but she was like a badass. She
Gets
didn't.
lonely on the road.
It wasn't like, oh, it's Hercules' wife.
Oh, right,
You know
right,
what
right,
I mean? Like, I mean, I want to be married to Kevin Sobo either, but it was just one of those things. She was too old anyway for him. But anyway, it's just one of those things where, you know what I mean? Like, it would have devalued her as a character. And
Yeah.
I think that that's where they did it to real. Like, if they would just left her, just
Just
be
as a-
her own. She was just
yeah.
a badass on her own.
Yeah, she
Which
really
this
didn't
is
need
kind of
to
the like
be-
a symbol, kind of like half Loki thing I'm wearing here, this little ensemble for this stream. But I really thought she was very strong, like you said, until they split her off with someone's interest, and then it kind of like it shifted her whole persona, like what her value was to the literature, and you saw it reflected in the movie, like what her value was. She went from a strong lead to, oh, it's this person's bitch, and it made her not
Not
a
cool.
yeah, it made her not a warrior.
wasn't
like she
cool.
couldn't just be a badass by herself. They had to
Nope.
be like, oh,
They
you
had
know
to
what?
ruin it.
It's too strong. We don't want to scare people off and intimidate people about how strong she is. Let's just give her this. She's gonna fall in love with this
I just
person.
really don't understand why they need to put love stories in something that isn't a love story. Like, it's not necessary for every movie, every show
to have a love story.
Yes, like
It's because
eh.
what it is, why they do it, it's because it's something that's relatable to anyone in the audience. So no matter what genre, no matter what age group, they feel like people that are watching it can be like, oh,
They're like, oh,
they can kind of in some way, in some form, throughout the course of a relationship that is shown on TV, relate in some area. Whether it's the bitching, the fights, the lovey-dovey, or whatever, you can relate it in some category because they assume that everyone has had a partner. Does that make sense? They assumed everyone has had one of these two things. And once it become relatable, you become emotionally attached to that. Oh man, dude, they're fighting like the one time my ex and I fight. And you see what that does? And it's a relatable entertainment is what it makes
I
sense.
get it.
I think it's dumb. I think it's dumb because there are so many characters, even in modern sci-fi books, where the females are so strong, but
they intimidate
every
everybody.
time they sell rights to studios to get these books published into movies, which have a huge cult following, like almost Star Wars level cult following, the studio sits on the rights and denies the project because the investors, which are normally from movie studios, are Middle East, and they don't want to see a strong female lead like that.
I'm tired of this
not,
shit,
it's
Grandpa.
Not, it's not culturally appropriate. And you'll see that with Warner Brothers. You'll
Fuck
see that
that.
with a lot of those studios, which is why like Mortal Kombat, when they cover a lot of the characters,
Yeah.
you'll see a shift in all that. And that's why. It is not because it's their choice. It is because the investors that are giving them money to get these things produced, whether it's the studio, whether it's video games or whatever.
Cultural beliefs
Such
having an
bullshit.
impact.
Such
A
bullshit.
strong female is considered intimidating. That's why people are very afraid of like chicks who go to the gym.
Hmm.
Well, you're very determined and you have a lot of muscles. All of a sudden, you bring out insecurities in other people, regardless of gender. Well,
True.
now obviously you're a threat because you're making me feel insecure about something. So
You feel
therefore,
insecure.
That's right. It's a
That's
you
a
thing.
you
That's a
problem.
you problem.
therefore you're now a societal threat.
So
Welcome
I fucking
back
hate
to
it here.
movies. You know what
I
I mean? But that's why I feel like they made her a side piece to someone.
I agree with
I feel
you.
like if they just would have
They
left her on
cast that movie so well. I don't blame any of the actors for any
No,
of it.
oh hell no.
It's
They
really
did
it's
it.
just the
It's
writing
just
that has
shit
They
to happen.
writing.
did so good, but it's
Yeah.
just the
Shout out to Peter Jackson. Like he did come
I
in
mean, he did just
halfway through and
yeah.
tried to salvage
He
it.
he did a great
It
job
was
for
a
what he had.
fun movie. Or
Yeah.
series
The
of
series was
movies.
great.
Yeah, The Hobbit. It was fun. I didn't love how much they CGI'd everything. I feel like practical effects are just always better.
Well, I
personally.
feel like at the time now, because they were reaching a budget cap with what they could do with production, they had to fill in a lot with the CGI stuff.
Well, imagine
But
100,000
They
horsemen.
were also filming it because 3D was like happening at the time.
Yeah, it was.
everywhere.
Yeah, so because of
Dude, I
that,
remember like you got a new TV and they gave you 3D glasses when you got like a Vizio and shit.
well, it was like you can even tell with the way they filmed it. Like when they're having the feast, when
Mhm.
they first get
Yeah.
to Bilbo's house, sometimes the food will fly at the camera because they literally filmed it. They filmed it in a different amount of frames per second, specifically to gear it towards.
the IMAX 3D.
Yeah,
IMAX
exactly.
3D. Yeah, because that
That's
was
what
the
it was.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so
was
it's
IMAX.
like I think that's part of why they went so heavy with the CGI, and because I don't know if it's because it was still kind of new, because this was what 20.
They thought it was going to be
This
the
was
next big thing.
2012,
Yeah, they
right?
thought it was the next big thing. Like
Yeah.
they were doing like
They
Pirates
were
of the
going hardcore.
Caribbean,
Yeah.
like with all these 3D, like
They probably had to shoot it in a
Yeah.
it
different
was
way
like the
too.
thing. Well, yeah, you had
did.
to.
They did. Yeah.
Everything's
You know
got to
what?
be rendered differently in the back end.
Yep.
Like
I'll curve a little bit. We were talking about strong female characters. I'll give the Rings of Power a compliment since I just shit on it a bunch. What's her name? Again, I'm so bad with names. The leader of the Jesus Christ, man,
Yes, my job.
my brain hurts. Numenor, the leader of
Yes.
Numenor, the queen.
Yes.
What's her name? Something with an M. First of all, she is fine. She is
Okay,
attractive.
so-
and then second of all, whoever does her costumes,
So
kudos.
So I
She's
gotta
great.
tell you this. So I'm not a fan, obviously, of the way that they know of her costumes. Or
Oh.
she's badass. She's so strong. However, I did some digging on this cast of Rings of Power
Ooh.
because I'm like, there's no way that you guys execute this very well. I mean, we'll take Gladriel and that out of it, but some of the older characters
Okay.
are nailing roles. Like they did a phenomenal job. And you can tell, like, you know, they probably shot this in 1 or 2 takes. Like they're just well seasoned.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but why haven't I ever heard of these people before and other stuff?
Mhm.
So I did some research. They're in the British theater.
Oh, so
Mm.
the
They
theater
performed
people.
in like
Well, I know.
London,
Yeah.
like at Shakespeare
actually did
Theater,
know that.
all this stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you have to be like, that is their Juilliard. Like, you have to
Yes.
be at that level of acting to perform
Mhm.
on that stage. That's like,
Yeah.
we ours, I think in the United States is like Juilliard or like Broadway. Like, if you
Mhm.
land Broadway, you're like amazing.
You're probably pretty high.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. You can act a
You're
little
okay.
bit. You might
Yeah.
get your way out of a speeding ticket, just saying. But like I was doing some insane research. I'm gonna butcher it because I always think of a different name. Celebrimbor. Did I say that right?
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor.
You're
There we go.
close.
That's
Yeah,
close. He's a veteran. So he's been at the British Theater for decades.
I can
And
see
like
that.
all this, like you go through his list of like
you
all
can
these
tell
to
by his
perform.
facial expressions.
He is so
He's got a
good.
wide range with his face.
Oh, he did so good. Also, I'm gonna. So the Numenor Queen,
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah, it's
But
like,
she's done like a
I
few
keep wanting to
American
call
stuff.
her Muriel, but then I know that's
You're
just
like
from
badass.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. I know that's not it, but I know it's
But, like,
close to that.
So she's phenomenal, and I know there was something recent she was just in as well. It'll come to me after this podcast.
But there are a
on the
lot
spot.
of
But
British actors
but-
in Hollywood.
But they come to that, you know, they get casted for that because a lot of the sci-fi stuff, a lot of things that we're seeing are set like that. I mean, look at the cast of Game of Thrones. Look at the cast of Harry Potter.
But even
like, but they
even
come
so,
to Hollywood
even
for
so,
that.
they come to Hollywood, but they have this flawless accent. Like they have English accent. Like
because the
Andrew
American
Garfield.
accent is at the front of your mouth. The
Yeah.
English accent is to the back of your mouth.
so they can do both really, really well.
With
it's
the
really
right
interesting.
dialect coach, it's very easy to switch between the two.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because you
And-
think that a lot of these guys are American, but then they talk. You're like, holy fuck!
But
this
if
guy's
you have a
English.
good dialect coach, or if you go to like a really good theater, or really things like that, like you can nail it. So I know this because the Tiz, I'm a chameleon to things, right? Which is why I was so good at doing theater, so good at like getting into roles, so good of like it just comes naturally to like chameleon. Anywhere I go, I pick up the language. Like I taught myself Italian on a 15-hour flight from LA to Rome, which is it's not that hard because it's to me it's a Latin-based language and years of formal Spanish. Like it wasn't that hard to switch over. But like if you drop me middle somewhere, I'll pick up the language, I'll pick up everything. Tis power. Anyway, but like you drop me in Europe and I'll pick up the accent with everything. And I'll be talking like that for weeks and not even know it, but I will get the accuracy.
You just pick it up.
Because you can go literally, it's like to the front of the mouth is more of the American accent. You, no offense, no pun intended, use your tongue more in the front for that. And then for the proper English, it's more back of the mouth.
That's
Time.
interesting. I didn't know
Front
that.
and back of the mouth.
Yep, you use that little dingly thing in the back of your mouth quite often. Anyway.
I do that when I make the Chewbacca sound. I can't do it right now from being sick, but
You do Chewbacca?
I can.
Okay.
I can't right now.
We'll have to
We're
bring
gonna
you
hold
back.
You have to bring me
We're gonna
back
have
for
to bring you
Star
back for a
Wars.
Star Wars
I'll do
episode.
that.
And
That'd be
I'll
amazing.
do the sound.
But yeah, a lot of the older actors in the Rings of Power, I was just like, you know what? Like, let's take the inaccuracy to the books out.
Mhm.
Let's just take, I mean, Gladriel, this is like her first big role. Like, we'll take that out, right?
Why would you do
Oh
that,
no.
though?
Well, because the looks.
But
but-
she doesn't even look like her.
Whatever. So I get what you're saying, but let's take that out. But I
Katie's
was looking.
offended.
I was looking at the season ones, and so I went down a rabbit hole, and I was like, I'm gonna see what all what all plays you've been in, what scores you've been done, like da 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 da. It is insane.
Mhm.
So the princess of the dwarves.
Oh, Disa? She's an opera singer.
She's a fucking
Yeah.
opera singer.
That's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
And I
so-
was
so
like,
highly trained.
love
I mean, because obviously she's singing
Right.
to the mountains, but I was like,
But that's actually her
But
singing.
like when I first heard it, somebody who's lyrically trained, and I heard that, and I was like, dude, she's not singing just soul. Like there's something there. This
That's
is
from within.
trained. This is the bottom of your diaphragm. This edge, the way she holds the notes and belts it. I was like, yo, what's up? Like this is something here.
You're like,
I
what's
know
going
this.
on, y'all?
I know this, and I go digging. I'm like, boom, opera, and I was like, yep, because you were trained to hold your diaphragm and hold that note for long periods of time, and I'm like, damn.
The
And
dwarves
she
are my
also,
favorite.
she's,
The
You-
dwarves are
do you know she's
fantastic.
5'7" in real life?
Hmm.
Like I had no idea.
It's all
and
about
I'm
the
like,
angles.
Mm.
well, I mean, it's the
I mean,
magic.
when they're filming with each
And,
other.
yeah,
It's a magic of Hollywood. But I was
Yeah.
just like, damn, dude. And she also was in like the British theater doing stuff
That's
like
not
that.
surprising.
And
to
I'm just
me,
like, she's
yeah.
they're so
She's
good.
great.
They're good.
fucking love her.
So is that your favorite race then in the universe?
in Rings of Power,
Definitely the dwarves.
the dwarves are my
No,
favorite.
in the books.
Ooh,
Ah.
dude.
Well,
That's
what do you
hard.
classify as a race, right?
They're all races.
Yeah, but like
I mean,
you're-
elves, dwarves, hobbits, ants. They're all races. Notice I threw ants in there.
I mean, I
Orcs.
like the elves. I mean, I'm a
goblins.
sucker for elves.
You Legolas stan.
That was my bisexual awakening right there. It's
Right?
like, is he a girl or a boy? I don't know, but I like it.
You're like, I
you
love
know?
this androgynous look.
They're super hot.
And tall.
Yeah,
magical.
and the fucking bone structure. Yeah, no, the elves for sure. I mean,
I would say the books elves. I would say, and the Rings of Power is definitely the dwarves.
the Rings
Well,
of
you
Power.
have an elf fetish
but,
anyway.
But even in the Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings
you
movies, the
absolutely
elves are
do.
cool.
I don't know. I mean, I just came out with pointed fucking human ears, so I mean, whatever. We'll rock it. I would switch to birth.
You love dark elves.
I'm obsessed with Dritz
You are.
and Metzaberunza. Very obsessed. I mean, I just literally have a whole shelf behind me that's just 3 shelves, all dedicated to Dritz and
Yeah. Elf.
the Loth Queen.
Elves. I mean,
And I mean, they all might be signed. I'm just partial to Aries
I can't lie. I
but
mean, elves were.
I'm very obsessed with the drow.
They're my favorite.
They're so cool. I've always had an affinity for like high elves and anything too. I think because I'm a little
They're
bit.
bougie.
I'm secretly a little uptight. That's why.
You bougie bitch.
Yeah, I know.
And magical.
I don't know, man.
Gotta be
I
magic.
like
Magically delicious.
I like the dark elves. Just the sense of there's just maybe it's just the smuttiness to it. I
So
really
do you
don't
like
know.
Adar? Do you fucks with Adar?
I mean, I would, but I mean, I think that would be the.
Scaly face and all.
No, I don't know about that, man. I'm just saying. I think that would be the only one that could outman me. Finally, I'm just saying. You know what? It's hard every day trying
it
to be
is.
a lady, right? Trying to be a fucking lady, but walk around with a 12-inch dick because you got to do all the manly shit. Like, I'm telling you what, someone that could outman me, have it. It's yours. I'll put it on a platter for you. Like, done.
Yeah.
So elves above all.
Elves above all, though.
Okay.
Master race for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're
It's like
pretty.
PC Master Race.
I mean, to be fair,
the way
they were,
Tolkien wrote them too. I
they
mean,
were
my
there
God.
I mean,
before
they-
anyone.
They were supposed
were.
to be like demigods in a sense.
Kind of, yeah.
Or like
well,
gods.
They were long lived.
Yeah.
I mean, they. Yeah.
Well, the celestial, I mean, they're kind of like the guardians, and
Yeah.
I feel like they were just kind of the higher entity of Middle Earth.
You know what I
essentially.
learned that's interesting? They can talk and sing and dance by the time they're a year old, but they don't reach full maturity until about age 50. Which in my brain, I just picture like a whole bunch of like babies like walking
Just
around, like
dancing.
dancing and singing.
So essentially, they're a human being because there are some men who just don't mature or start maturing till the age of 35.
yeah.
Essentially, some of them never reach that, and some of them don't start showing signs till the age of 50. So,
Yeah.
in
Well-
today's
And
society,
there's probably some that, because elves live for a fuckload of
They
years.
live forever.
I mean, Arwen was what 2000 ish
That's a
Something
long
like
ass
that.
time,
when Aaron came to live with him. So, like, as an infant. So, going back to this,
I said
grooming
what I
thing,
said.
I said what I said. She was grooming him.
Yeah. It's a little creepy.
She had a little fetish, man.
I mean, he's hot as fuck.
She
though.
watched that PP grow.
When you put it into context like that, it's kind of wild, right?
It's
Where it's like,
gross.
here's this toddler.
If it was the other way around, canceled.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
Canceled.
imagine. Let's just put this in context. And I always say this because it hits home a little bit. Too close, unfortunately. Imagine being a senior in high school. Okay? You graduated. You're done. You're going on to college. You literally go to kindergarten roundup and you pick out your future wife.
No.
Mhm.
No.
No, I think
No.
you got to go farther. I
No.
think you got to
But-
be like
but
in
I'm
your
saying-
40s.
But I'm saying essentially,
No.
think of it like that.
Yeah, no, it's wild.
I've already thought about it. That's why I called her a fucking groomer. Yeah. No. Hard pass. I get it though. I would lick the sweat and blood off of that man.
I mean,
That's
If you want to talk about like positive masculinity, right there, definition of it. And Viggo Mortensen,
it's king, dude. Come on.
like,
You're into kings?
I'm into kinks or kings.
Kings
Both.
and kinks.
Both.
First off, I am a king.
I'll
Don't
be
get
a-
it twisted.
I'll be a
Second
king
of
or a
all, kinks,
queen.
yes. Huh?
I said a king or a queen. I'll be a queen,
A quink.
right? King and a queen with a kink, a quink.
Coin the term.
I don't know. It makes
There it
you
is.
sound twinky. You're not a twink.
No, I got too many guns for
No,
that.
that's what I mean.
Flex the gun show, y'all.
Whatever.
Okay, so let's talk weapons.
Oh,
All of
What's
them.
your favorite
This is naughty.
weapon?
This is naughty. This is naughty. I think because she is Katy LaGray that she prefers a long,
Staff.
thick wood stick, staff,
okay. So, no,
girthy, veiny.
okay. I, as much as having a wizard staff would be super cool,
I would beat people with that motherfucker.
I'm low.
I would beat people with that.
I'm low key obsessed with Gandalf's sword Glamdring. I don't even know why.
Glamdring.
There's not even a good reason for it. I just think it's just very classic. I think it's very cool,
It's a longsword.
and I like it.
It's badass.
So I like Glamdring.
I don't know. I always tend to go for long swords over short swords. Or if I'm doing short swords, you get two of them. like the scimitars, like the two
Mhm.
of them.
I just
Pretty
think of RuneScape.
Well, Dritz
The
had
skimmies.
scimitars, so he had
The scimitars.
Yes, he had the two of
Yes.
them.
Yeah, very Middle East.
Mm.
Yeah, they're cool.
There's just something about that lore, like Glamdring is classic
Yeah,
magic, right?
It's like Lady of the Lake.
I
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
With the sword.
I do like the design of all the elven weapons though, because they kind of like, at least in the
Trees,
movies,
earthy.
they look like
You read
woodland
through.
katanas.
Mm.
The way
Kind
that they're
of.
shaped,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
And it makes sense because if you think about it, they're so fast as fuck,
Yeah.
boy. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that they designed them like that.
All of them are incredible archers, great swordsmen.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I
And they do it on bareback.
Yeah, also.
Me too.
Mystery.
Yeah.
So let's talk about favorite battle.
Ooh. We're talking books or movies, man?
Books.
Mm.
Books. And if you want to go movies, you could say movies, fine. I'm down with
gonna
that.
say Battle for Helm's Deep. I think cinematically the best battle I've ever seen in my life. So I don't give a fuck about any other battle ever. And the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones was pretty,
That was-
pretty
That
beautiful.
was pretty good.
That was pretty
well done.
beautiful.
That was
But
well
I don't
done.
think
The Battle for Helm's Deep.
the anticipation, the leading up to it, when like you literally, it was just so well done cinematically that you literally were like, "This is it. They're fucked. This is." Like you could feel it, and the
you
actors,
feel everything they feel.
the actors just brought it forward. You know what I mean? And like it was just captured and executed so exceptionally. Just it was a masterpiece that you were like, you truly thought this is it. Like you could have read the books forever and knew what was coming, but at that moment you were like, generally they're fucked.
All hope is lost.
Like it's gone. Like you lost hope in it. Anything that because the
Yeah.
movie Magic, you were like, this is it, and you hurt for them because you felt like you were dying with them. And then when you just see the cavalry come up, you were just like, yeah, I got goosebumps, man. You were just like,
I'm also I'm
riders.
like I feel it. Honestly,
oh,
you know what
shit.
it is? I love Theoden. Theoden
Yeah.
King.
Theoden King.
He is so good. And in that moment, he's sitting there and he's like, is this it? Is this all you can conjure? And then they blow up the fucking wall and he's like, oh my God. And you just see it on his face.
Yeah.
And then at one point, he's like,
He's like,
pull everybody back.
he's
And
like, we're fucked.
he's like, I have failed. And you go through this journey with him as someone that cares so much for his people, that's trying so hard to redeem himself
he's
after
just-
his mind was taken for how long by Saruman?
Yeah.
And he's
And
just
now
like,
he's back too, and this is in his
I
mind. This is
failed
all
you.
his fault. It's all my fault. And now
I
he's-
failed my
yes.
people. I'm a shit king. Not
Yeah.
only did I allow, because you don't, with someone who's high powered than you don't understand that they have control over you.
Mm.
You think that you can block out anyone.
Yeah.
You think that, no matter what, your good hope, your good grace, you're a good human being, you can block out someone trying to possess you. So he feels like I'm less of a person already, knowing the fact that this guy possessed me, took over, did this damage to my people, and I didn't know it. Like I had no way of stopping it. It makes you feel less of a man, less of a king, less of someone who feels like they need to be on that throne with anyone's lives depending on you.
Yep.
And so the fact that here it is, he's like, okay, all right, I'm back in the game with you guys. We're going to start rock bottom, but I'm here with you. Let's go. And then that happens. And it's just like, you could just see.
He was just hopeless. And the
He
fact
was like,
that
I'm done. Like,
Aragorn's like, we're gonna do this. He's like, get it together,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's,
Handle
and they
this shit.
go out and he's like, yeah, like you're right. Like I can't just cower. And you know what I really love as well? So the beginning of Return of the King in the movie, I'm talking about the movies.
The movies.
Right.
Okay.
When they go to visit Isengard, because technically that happens at the end of Two Towers, but it doesn't really wrap things up nicely. So I like the way they did it in the movies because it segues really nicely. So after the Battle of Helm's Deep, and they go to visit Saruman in the tower, and he says to him, you are a lesser son of greater sires. And he sits there and you see in his face, he's like, fuck, because he feels
He
that
knows.
way. But he's not. He just is really hard on himself.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm sorry, I love Theoden. He's one of my favorite
No, no,
characters.
no.
I love how that's how we start off Return of the King, where you're like, don't forget, you fucked up. And then he takes that. And then when by the time he dies, I mean, Jesus Christ, the charge into the Pelennor
That was
Fields.
sick.
You could watch that a
That was
million. I
probably
get
that was
chills
probably my
thinking about
favorite.
it.
That was my
That
favorite,
battle,
hands down.
Pelennor
The
Fields.
Pelennor Fields
It's
was
really good.
ridiculous.
And when he charges in there and he's just like,
well, how he
let's fucking go.
how he hypes up his entire group.
Yes.
Everybody's like,
He
We've
was
lost it all.
He
We've
was-
done this, but I'm here with you. We're fucking doing it.
That is a
it
good
just
king.
definitely.
He's on the front line
today is
with
a
his
good day to
people.
die, right? Like, let's go. I was like, fuck yeah, man. I got
I was
hyped.
like-
I
I
was
was
just like,
like,
yeah,
I
Yes.
was like, I'm fucking charging in there with you.
Yep.
Like, let's
let's
go.
go. Let's do it.
Yes.
I'll take a sword for you. Let's.
Well, I mean,
fucking-
I think that's
Dude,
that's the greatness of
I'm
a
like-
very inspirational leader.
Yes.
I was like,
that
this
was
dude
redemption.
definitely had to be a
Redemption. It's the redemption
redemption
arc. It's the
100%.
redemption arc, right?
But the thing is like, no one beat him up like he beat himself up. He was so
But
hard
you
on
don't
on
see.
himself.
You don't, and it's one of those things it's just not captured because there's. I mean, you always see leaders who are very pompous. It's not my fault. It's my staff, or I was misled, or I was misinformed. Like you don't see the true accountability.
Yeah.
You don't see that. You don't see the
Mhm.
self-reflect. You don't see the questioning of worth. You don't see the pain that that you don't feel the remorse for what you caused
Right.
your people. You don't see that in any of the monarchy.
Right.
You don't. You're always like, oh, it's their fault, not mine. It's the lack of it. It's the lack of having empathy. So he goes through all these range of emotions.
Oh yeah.
And he nails it. I mean, this actor, he nailed
yeah.
everything and Tolkien, like, and the movies capture it. Like he nails every step of the way, and you feel it. You feel his remorse. You feel his regret. You feel his second guessing.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
and
His
the-
anger towards
Yep.
Gondor, and then he turns around and he's like, no, we have to go. Like,
Let's go.
Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? Bitch, right? Well, I mean, to be fair, they were fighting their own battles, but it's like you go through, I mean, he's so human. And he is a human. And
he's
but
very
he-
relatable.
He's so relatable. He's so flawed.
But you
and I
if you
love that about
find
him.
yourself a king that'll get in the battle and get in the front
Oh yeah.
and be the first to
Nitty-gritty.
charge you there,
100%.
and he's like, you know what? We might die today, but today's a good fucking day to die. Let's fucking go.
That is a man
Like,
worth following.
It is a man worth
Do you
following.
think that the way he went out did justice to his character?
I think if they would have went out any other way, I think
Yeah.
it would have been a bitch move.
Honestly, because if anyone was gonna kill him, the Witch King, Daddy, is definitely the one to do it, dude. I am
And
a
then-
sucker
and
for the Witch
then-
King.
And
He's
then,
one of my favorite villains.
and then the Lich King dying by the daughter. So
Yeah, honestly, I loved it. I thought it was
I
great.
thought that was perfect.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was like a transition of passing to power,
And he died on the battlefield,
and
which,
Yeah.
which where he should
He
have
died
been.
with
That's where
honor.
he
He died
should
with
have
honor.
died, yes.
Absolutely.
And then
I
he
agree.
saw that his daughter was there with him, and I think he got the closure he needed. So I feel like in Tolkien's era, like if it was ever like where it reincarnated, like there would have been no loose ends. Does that make sense? Like I feel like it's something like that.
I like that it took something magical to take him down.
Oh yeah.
Like,
because
Okay.
because I think it's too is because like heart, like not to pull Captain Planet shit out of it, but he had so much heart
Yeah.
that I feel like that would have been the only thing because of the
Oh,
resilience.
he had so much willpower.
they had to take him down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, this is the Witch King. This is the same man that broke the line of kings
Yep.
for Gondor.
Mhm.
He is the one that broke the line of kings. So I think it's only right for him to be the one that breaks
Okay.
the line of kings for Rohan, because that's his niece. That's not even his daughter.
Nope.
And it's
Right,
not his
yeah.
son. It's not
Nope.
his nephew. His son was already
He
killed.
was dead.
Yep.
So, like, yeah, you did, but you didn't, but you did, like the witch
It's
King.
still passed on the bloodline, but it's not the direct bloodline.
Exactly.
So you know what I mean.
I thought it was
I think
poetic.
it's fitting.
I thought it was
yeah.
very poetic. I loved it, honestly. And the way that they did it in the movies, I loved it. I think the actor fucking nailed it.
Killed it.
Nailed it.
Just literally to this day, it's one of those movies. It's one of those scenes that I hope they never ever touch to remake it.
Oh God, no.
They'll
Yeah.
never be able to get the magic.
They need to just
They
not
never be
ever
able-
try to redo Lord of the
Well,
Rings.
it takes you on that battle specifically takes you on this emotional roller coaster, right?
The Pelennor Fields?
Yeah. Oh my God. And you're just like, oh fuck yeah, we're gonna win the
Yeah.
day. And then you're like, no, what
Yeah.
happened? Oh my God, he's
That
going
is
down.
so true. Well, not only that, but it's like So you're starting off viewing Minas Tirith in total ruin.
Mhm.
Gandalf is essentially, so it's interesting. I always think it's interesting how they chose to portray his encounter with the Witch King. Because in the books, so when they break down the doors, the Witch King
Comes in.
comes through the
Yep.
doors, not the trolls. And all of the men were scared, so Gandalf stood alone
He
as
stepped
they
in.
broke open
Yep.
the doors to Minas Tirith, and he faced off with the Witch King. And of course, it is the same. Rohan steps in. He's like, "Bitch, I got shit to do, okay?" And then he bails, right? But I thought it was interesting that they decided to put him on a fell beast, and I just thought it was kind of interesting. I don't dislike it or like it more. I just thought it was kind of cool. So you're going through this thing where you're like, Minas Tirith is fucked, and then Rohan shows up, and you're like, okay, cool, we're saved. And then the Oliphants show up, and you're like, okay, now we're fucked. And then
was like back and
Aragorn and the Dead
forth.
Army shows up, and you're like, okay, now we're good. Like it's just like,
Well,
There's
they brought
so
everybody
much,
on that one.
Yeah, but
Everybody came
it's
in.
so much. You're just like,
you're right. It is a lot of that.
It
there's
is.
so
Totally
much
right.
roller coaster
Yeah,
to it. And
definitely.
you're just like, shit, did I sign up for like, Six Flags? Like, what fucking ride are we on? And can I get off? You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's the up and down. It's those hidden fucking upside down loops. And you're like, dude, I can't anymore. Like, you feel like you can't take another up and down. You
So
know what I mean?
who did they send to go after to try to get the Eagles to come and join? Do you remember? Because they were always wondering. They're like, where are they? Where are they? And then they show up and they're like, holy fuck, here they are. Because
Was
I mean,
it-
they're OP characters.
I don't remember who they sent. I think
I thought Gandalf called them.
Gandalf just sends for them.
Does he send for
Yeah,
them?
he sends for them because like they don't show up with anyone writing on them.
No. They
Well,
don't. They're
the-
not.
the
They're
only
not.
thing I
Nobody
can
writes
think
them.
of-
The only reason why Gandalf rides them is because he saved, I can never remember names, the leader of the Eagles.
Gwahir.
Gwahir, that's
Gwahir.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
In the
Good
Hobbit,
memory.
in the Hobbit, he
Yeah.
saves him,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's the only
The
reason.
king of the Eagle regions.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we're buddies now, right? So then it's
You
like,
can ride my back.
yeah,
Rock.
I got you.
I
boo.
loved that character, by the way.
Yeah, you know,
So good.
I
I
understand.
have a thing for Eagles. I think they're
why
badass.
they didn't do more with the Eagles. In the movies, I understand. I wish they would have done more in The Hobbit with the Eagles. You know
It was
what
just
I mean?
a very small thing.
Yeah, and it would have been nice to have them show the relationship because in the movies, in The Hobbit, they just show up. Like
Yeah.
they're already friends with Gandalf. And
Yep.
it's like, well,
How did it get to that point?
yeah, I would have liked to.
Yeah.
have
Like,
seen
how
that.
did it get to that point? Like,
And-
you don't know unless you read the book.
And you got to think that they're
Exactly.
'Cause I had to
badass if they
research
can
that.
take on a ring wraith.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I mean,
people are
holy
like,
shit,
oh, well,
dude.
why didn't they just fly the ring to Mordor?
Well, the thing
Did
is,
you not see the dragons that were in the way?
I don't know,
mean,
Schmog,
there's some-
like, what the
There's some
fuck?
badass motherfuckers.
But
Literally.
it's like, but it's one of those things too where you're like, so Gandalf talks to eagles? Like, you don't know until you read the book. You're like, does he like, can he call other things? Like, why can't he call a dragon then if he can call an eagle?
It's
You
so
know what I
true,
mean? So
'cause
unless you
Radagast-
dig in the books or like Google fluid, which I had to do because I'm like,
This don't make no sense.
right, if he's calling fucking eagles that you can ride
Yeah.
that are like the size of dragons, why can't this bitch call dragons?
Yeah.
He
well,
could have, you know what I mean?
Dragons are inherently evil in
I
In
know.
the
that
yes,
universe.
Yes.
But
Greedy
But
as
like,
fuck.
yeah, it is kind of interesting, right? Because Radagast talks to animals, and we see that in The Hobbit. Like I'm talking
Yes.
cinematically only. We see that in The Hobbit. So why wouldn't you? Just...
Baynor does too.
Well, yeah, but he's also partially an animal, so that
So,
kind of makes sense.
Another
But-
badass character
but
they
it-
didn't do enough
that's
with.
so
He's
true.
so fucking badass.
But
Do you remember in
I
the
love the
books
actor.
of a description where he actually wades into battle and he talks about how he just fucking just wrecks everybody
Yeah,
when he
oh,
finally
for
decides to
sure.
step in?
he's a badass.
Oh my god, I'm like, do
Mhm.
more with this character. He's so cool.
That would have been
there's
really cool.
still so, but they just found that other writing of Tolkien's too. There's just
Tolkien
so
did
many
short
of his
stories. Tolkien did a
works.
bunch of stuff.
Well, no, they
Yeah,
just
well, his
uncovered
son
stuff
tried
for
to
it
take over.
too. They just uncovered new stuff. So I mean, we're still uncovering new Tolkien works. We're still uncovering like new Beethoven shit. Like, There's so much stuff that like people don't even know what they have and who it's by until it
Well,
actually
think
gets
about
like
writers, right?
surfaced.
When they're writing stuff, sometimes they're just short stories, something
But
quick, and then they're like,
Sitting
"Oh,
at
okay, yeah,
lunch,
let's go.
have a
Okay,
thought.
yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
done
the
with
thing of
that."
it is like when they pass, you don't know where all that's going.
Yeah,
Like, what if someone misses that, or it's it's left in the house and no one knows, and they don't know who the previous owners were. It got
yeah,
sold at an auction,
That's
and then
true.
here you're sitting with a bunch of writings where you don't know who it belonged to because maybe it wasn't signed. But the way it's distinctively written, you're probably like, "What the fuck is this?" And you throw it in the thrift store, and you don't know. Like, if we look about like all these paintings that people are like, "Oh, we just found this in the dumpster. We had no idea what it is," or "We just found this at a thrift store for $2," and you don't know it's an actual real fucking Picasso. Like any of that shit. Like that's how a lot of this stuff
yep.
happens. Or it's stuff
He
that
had like
was,
this trunk that's like
yeah,
stashed away of all of his
Oh
like
my
musings and
god.
writings.
If I could
Wouldn't that be
talk,
sick? That'd be so
yes,
cool.
yes.
I would read all of it. I'd be like, "Oh my god, this
I
is
would
amazing."
just, I would just be like, can you just say things to me? I just want to hear you talk. I just want to bask in your glory. Oh God.
Bask in the glory.
Yeah,
Do you have
dude.
anything Lord of the Rings? Do you like any of his books, like limited editions or
oh,
anything
I
like that
do.
you've
I
collected?
do downstairs in my library.
I
I have
don't,
so
I
many.
don't have any. Oh well, my
Like the leatherbound books. Like I'm not talking like Easton Press. Like so Easton
yeah.
Press, which is notoriously known for doing limited collection and print runs of books with like gold bindings,
Mm.
like leather perfected spines, like number one of 2000, but they cost you like 2000. Those type of books, I don't have any of those. I have seen them in hand before, and they're usually behind glass cases just because that's how much they are.
Mm.
But I do have some of like the special edition ones that like I believe it was like Barnes and Noble put out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few other ones, smaller presses that put out. I have a few of those downstairs.
My stepmom
But
has a pretty impressive book collection. Excuse me. Sorry.
the audacity of your alarm.
My
But
my stepmom has a pretty impressive book
I thought you were
collection.
gonna pull it out, and I was
I was
like,
like,
"Here we
"Whoa,
go."
let's
Bro,
see the
can
book
you
collection."
imagine? Here's this limited edition $7,000 book. No, I don't read. I always say that to people. I'm like, I can't read. Then they realize I've read the Silmarillion.
And they're like, "Holy
Like,
shit!
I
You
actually
can
can
read.
read.
You
I
can
just,
actually can read.
I
If you
just,
can read the Silmarillion,
yeah,
dude, you
it's
can read.
boring. It's boring, honestly. It's so boring.
It's
It's like
long.
reading a history book. It is so boring. Audiobook, telling you. Anything Tolkien, if you don't like to read, don't fucking read it. You're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Listen to
I
it.
have a book. It's like it's all three in a red
Like an
like leather
omnibus.
binder.
I'm poor. I don't have things like this.
I got it a long time ago, a very, very, very long
It's a
time
fossil
ago, as a
edition.
Christmas
Mm.
present. It was so cool.
I have some cool collectible stuff. Like I've got all the Pez things that are collectible. I've gotten some handmade like maps, and I have like I've got all the original cartoon like movies on DVD, like The Hobbit, the Fellowship of the Ring, and the Return of the King. And well, I guess it was Lord of the Rings and Return of the King because they just did it in 2 movies. Anyway, not the point. We should do a fucking watch party, by the way.
We should.
I'm down.
I would love
The
to do
extended
that.
edition.
Yes.
We should live stream
Boys.
it.
I meant the cartoons, but yeah. Can we? I
The
have them
cart-
on DVD.
You have the cartoons?
Yeah, I have them. Yeah.
So I have like
Oh
the
my
special
God.
edition, extended edition Lord of the Rings.
Same.
Do you have the old
But
cartoon?
Yeah.
You do?
The Hobbit,
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings,
You have
and the
you have
Return.
all of them?
I've never
Yes.
seen them.
Let's fucking watch them.
Let's fucking go.
Those are
So
wild.
I'll be honest
Dude,
with
they're
you.
so
They're
creepy.
so fucking
They're
creepy.
so creepy.
They're strange
They're
as fuck.
awesome.
So I think like I've got a blanket that has the Middle Earth map on it. But as far as Lord of the Rings, I don't have much. Like that's it. The reason being it's not that I'm not a fan, right? So I had limited space when I started collection. I know you guys are looking at this room and looking how mortified it is, but it's dominantly all fucking video games, chocobos and moogles. However, I will say that at the time where I could financially start buying things for a collection, Lord of the Rings stuff was in the thousands.
Well, it's
So
cult.
the figures, like trying to capture any of that was already in the thousands. And I'm like, bro, I can't compete with this.
Yeah.
That's like competing with like Hot Toys, trying to get the limited edition Star Wars shit, but like on a mass scale. And I'm just like, dude, I cannot compete with this. So a lot of that stuff was already out 10, 15 years.
Yep.
So before I could actually like, hey, I'm no longer a broke college student for like the last fucking decades. So I was like, this is not something I can jump into.
Mm-mm. You
And
have to
it's
go
one of
find
those
it from
things
places
where,
where
like,
people don't know what they are.
everyone knows. Everyone's grandma, great grandma, and their dog clearly knows if they have Lord of the Rings shit somewhere, estate sales, whatever. They put it up instantly on eBay, or they go resell it to people they know that buy it, and forget about it. Like, you're never gonna walk in somewhere and be like, "There's this cool Lord of the Rings thing for under $1,000."
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So it's just not something like, look at Weta, like all this stuff with Weta.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they had Triel's Bowl. They had I had all this stuff years ago. And I went to a Weta exhibit at a con, and I was like, because I was working the con, and I
Really?
went in there. Oh my God. They had all this stuff from Lord of the Rings. The trolls they actually brought in was like
That's
massive.
awesome.
I would pee myself. That would
And
be so cool.
they had
Oh,
all
wow.
this stuff. And I'm like,
Don't they
there's
have Hobbiton in New Zealand?
yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yes, a
private,
friend
it's
of mine
private
just
property.
went.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it's fucking cool. And you can stay they have a hotel that's set up that's
I
like
think we need
Dude.
to
on
go
the
on
property.
site.
Absolutely. On
Oh,
site.
I would lose my
We'll do a podcast on site.
shit.
That'd be
Team
amazing.
bonding trip.
Team
Who,
bonding trip.
who
Let's
wants to
go.
sponsor this? We'll bring you along.
I'll show you my butt.
See,
Make that
it's
too.
been said. It's
Anyway,
been said.
dude, I go for it. Toss the ring in it.
Toss the
Anyway.
ring.
But it's one of those things
I
where
like it, then you gotta put a ring on it.
Is that what Gandalf said?
Oh, God.
but it's such there's like a resort you can stay on there.
That's
Oh,
wild.
yeah.
And they have all this
It's like a bed and breakfast.
yeah, it's so fucking cool.
You can go to the Green Dragon.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my
They
God.
did all
I wonder
this.
if they come in pints there.
They probably do.
They do actually. A friend of mine just went like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "You dirty cunt."
That's so cool.
And
We
they
gotta
did
do it.
everything, so it was like super cool. But
Oh, dude, if you go, you have to do everything.
Right? You
When
have
I
else
would
am
do.
going to
I
New
would do
Zealand
all of
again?
that. Everything.
Oh my God,
who
yeah.
wants to have me as a guest plus two, or all of us as a guest at New Zealand
Let's
or
go.
Australia?
Let's go
Let's
to
go.
Armageddon
We-
Expo.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
con,
I want to
right?
do it.
Yeah. Do
Hey,
the con.
Armageddon.
Yeah.
I'll do a panel. I'll do 2 panels. Let's
Same.
go.
Same. I'll
Let's
do
go.
photography panel. I'm in. Let's go.
Let's
make it happen.
go.
I'll bring Warcraft cosplays.
Let's do it. I will
Yes.
too.
Yes. Warcraft cosplay.
I'll build big for New Zealand.
So I had a question. So what was the first book that you read? A
The
Tolkien
Hobbit.
book.
The
Was it The
Hobbit.
Hobbit?
And actually,
When?
I didn't even read it. My dad read it to me.
He did.
Yeah,
Your dad read The Hobbit
my
to
dad
you?
read The Hobbit to me when
That's
I was in like
amazing.
elementary school. I went to like a Catholic school. God.
Dad of the year.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah,
award.
Dad.
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Steve,
you're
we
amazing.
love you.
We love you,
You're
Steve.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, I remember we started it. It was like, I want to say it was like the summer of like 4th or 5th grade. And I remember we started it while we were at the beach. Like on like vacation, we used to go to the beach every year. And I remember like in our hotel room, him sitting there reading The Hobbit to me. I remember him reading An Unexpected Party, and I remember him doing the voices for the dwarves and stuff.
Dude.
It was great. And
Steve, you're awesome.
I think that's what sparked it for me is I got so into it. And then when the movies came out, because when the first movie came out, it was 2001. I was 6 years old. And he watched it. By the time the second movie was coming out, which was the following year, 2002, they had released the first one on DVD. And he brought it home and he let me watch it. We had Popsicle Crazy Night where we would eat popsicles. And I'm giving you a peek into my childhood, okay?
That's awesome.
We would have Popsicle Crazy Night, and we would watch it, and I remember seeing Scary Bilbo and damn near peeing my pants and being so
Oh yeah.
scarred by that.
Mhm.
I just was so taken with it at such a young age, and I've just
I think
lived
because
and breathed Lord of the Rings and Tolkien forever.
I think
Yeah.
because also it started for you too is like your dad doing the voices and like getting into it was kind of like your little mini storyteller at home.
Yes.
And then the fact like when you're a kid, it's already magical when your parent gets into it. And I'm not talking about just like reading a monotone voice, but I mean like doing the voices, getting
Mhm.
into it.
Yeah.
You're already thinking like this is the coolest fucking thing ever. And then when they actually make a movie, and as a kid you're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
It's like they made a real life cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get into it, and then you're like, this is all the stuff we've talked about. This is all that Dad, you read all this stuff. And like it starts to like come through. It's just
Yeah.
like the things that you envision in your head based upon the way that your dad read
Oh,
them
yeah.
to you is you're watching it now on TV.
Yeah, it
It's
sets
a
the tone.
whole it's a whole everything connecting together. And then I feel like whatever imagination had already been sparked just You just went off on the deep
Oh yeah.
end. You know what I mean? I
Oh, for
think that's
sure.
awesome.
I was in 7th grade, and it was my English teacher that said everybody needs to read this book. It was The Hobbit. It was the first book, and
Dude,
I
I
was
got
like,
Lord of the Flies.
oh, Hobbit, what is this? And then I read it, and I was like, holy fuck, like this is an incredible book. And then it just started my love for Tolkien. I had to read all of the rest of
Dude,
them.
I wish our teachers did that. I got like Lord of the Flies and Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice, and I'm like,
Boring.
Yeah, it
Lord
started
of
my
the
love for
Flies.
fantasy
We didn't
books.
even have The Hobbit wasn't even an option.
Yeah, damn, that's too bad. But
Fucking
I think for a lot of us,
Midwest.
at least for me, it was an escape into this world, this fantasy world of elves and dwarves and good versus evil, an escape from your reality of the. I mean, because we grew up poor and it was rough,
I
but
mean,
it was an
yeah, I
escape,
think we.
right? And I think that was
Your
something that I will
imagination is
always remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
Your imagination is what
It saves you.
it does. It really does. And I'm not talking about the horrid imagination. I'm talking about like the imaginative things where you're like, what if we did live in this world, or
It's
what
like
if we
the
did this
childlike
characters?
wonder.
And I
It
feel
is.
like
Yeah.
we spend the rest of our lives grabbing and scraping and trying to grab at whatever we can find that brings us back to that feeling, whether we create it ourselves, from like cosplays to other things, which you'll talk about later, to doing, like anything. You know what I mean? You make
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
or you're seeking out other sources to it. You know what I mean? I think that's why like everyone had such high expectations for Rings of Power, because there was just this Tolkien has all these works. You've read all these works, and you're like, okay, this has got to be something good. And I feel like it's something so good. You literally was handed to it on a platter. You just had to capture it somewhat like the movies. And when it falls through, it's so disheartening, because you're like, it's
Yeah.
not for the lack of literature not being there. It's kind of like when Disney rolled off and said that the extended universe doesn't exist anymore. There's just extended universe is what saved Star Wars, essentially. So you're thinking like, how is that not relevant? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How are those books? How is the Ring of Power? Like, how is those books not relevant to be accurate
Well,
for
I
the show?
think
You
that's
know what I mean?
the thing
Couldn't
about it.
afford it.
I think the
Mhm.
thing about it is you have to understand. You have to read the work in order to be able to do justice to it if you're going to bring it
Well,
to the screen.
You know,
Right.
look at The Witcher, right? Henry Cavill was passionate about The Witcher and didn't
He's-
like the
he's-
direction
He's a
that things
gamer.
were
He
going.
plays the games.
Yeah, so wouldn't you want someone that knows the source material to be the one to bring that character to life?
Yep.
I mean, Christopher Lee, right? Saruman, right? He was like, oh my God, I'm being a part of this. He was the only person that ever met Tolkien that worked on those movies.
I
The
would have
fact that-
cried.
In oh my God, right? When he's stabbed in Return of the King, which doesn't actually happen in the books, they just leave Saruman at his tower.
They do.
It's not confirmed actually what happens to him afterwards, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's just the last we hear of him.
They left it open.
Yeah, well, he destroys his staff
Mhm.
and he's expelled from the order.
Yep.
But anyway, in the movies, they're like, well, we're gonna kill him, and I get that cinematically, give people an
Yeah.
end, some closure, and they wanted him to scream when he was stabbed, right?
But
And
is he
he's-
really dead? Because
Oh, he's dead in the movies for
no,
sure.
no, I know, but I'm like in the books.
Oh, well, they don't know. 'cause
Unconfirmed.
They never
Exactly.
said. Because he was never stabbed in the books.
But in the movie,
they're
they
like,
gave you
oh,
the
we want you
ending.
to scream. And he was like, no, I've been to war and men do not scream when they get stabbed in the back. And you're like, okay, first of all, that's terrifying, right?
And
then
that's badass.
second of all, it's like, dude, this is a man that knows the character well, that knows the guy that created the story, that's been to war. Listen to him. And they did. And it's an incredible scene
Mhm.
when Wormtongue kills Saruman. And he's like, oh, like it's just that shock of like,
Oh,
oh my God, like
Well,
I can't
Christopher Lee
believe
was
my
like- he was
my
just
peasant minion just fucked me. Like,
he was God tier, essentially. Like, if you look at this man's biography,
Christopher Lee.
yeah,
Yeah,
what the hell, dude?
he was a G for sure.
Like, unreal legend.
and
Like,
I think
it's
that's
insane to me.
that's one of the things we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but I think that's one of the things that's been missing is great storytelling. Understanding if you're going to bring
Oh.
literature to life, read it, be
Yeah.
passionate about it in order to do justice to it. If you're going to bring it onto the screen, right? Like,
I think too many people pull away from the literature, the written work. I think that they try to modify it for modern day.
Or they think it's not
Hold on.
necessary.
Or they try to placate all range of modern audience and therefore requires tweaking a lot of things to make it socially acceptable for everyone. And I think when you do that, you pull away from the true work. The work itself. The work itself was written years ago, decades ago. And you have to, that's what people fell in love with. They don't want the modern version, or they don't want the societal acceptable version. They want that work.
Mhm.
So they feel if they don't make it modernly acceptable, or to where it placates and satisfies every range in society, that they won't make money back off of it. And they have to understand that if you stay true to the literature, if you stay true to that,
As
and
true as you can.
It sells itself.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
and you bring it forward, and you're like, this is a historical piece, a classic piece of literature. We're bringing it to life. You have to understand the setting of the literature itself, the time frame of which it was set. Bring it to life. Let the battles do itself. Let the characters, their lives, their storytelling come to life. You will just see the response just be just so overwhelming.
Yeah.
I agree
Acceptable with it, because you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
there's certain pieces of literature where you shouldn't bring to life because it's. I mean, there
Inherently
are
offensive.
right?
Yeah.
I understand that, but we're talking about sci-fi, like fantasy.
Yeah. Fantasy
Like
is
a fantasy. Fantasy is fantasy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, we only know that the dinosaurs exist because we found bones. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But like, we don't know the elves didn't exist. We
I
don't
mean,
know,
I'm here.
right?
You're-
Exactly.
You're pretty much an elf, dude.
Right, 100%. But it's just one of those things
That's
where,
why you
like,
know so much about the
Right.
universe, the Tolkien universe,
yeah,
because you lived it.
it sets well to you. It's your homage.
Interdimensional crossover.
It's your homage. But it's just one of those
My
things
lore.
where if they just stick to as best as they can to bring forward that you already have a story that's told. Somebody has already wrote you a story.
Yeah.
Your job is just to make sure the cameras capture that, make sure the actors are bringing forth what the storyteller
Mhm.
has implied that
Yep.
these characters are feeling and stuff. Let the storyteller be the storyteller. That's why the DMs in D&D
Oh,
don't
good DM
try
is incredible.
don't try to modify
Mhm.
what the DM is doing. The DM is there as a storyteller.
Mhm.
Don't modify the story. Go with it. See where the campaign takes you. That's what they should be doing with Tolkien for
Right.
the Rings of Power.
I agree.
He's already your DM. He's already wrote the campaign. Just
Well, I
make
mean,
it come
look
to
at what
life.
happened with Deadpool Wolverine, right? They wanted to tell, they're like, Deadpool is Deadpool. He operates a certain way, and this is the way Wolverine is. And look what happened.
Oh,
Successful.
Ryan Reynolds fought for
Crushed it, right? It was amazing because they're like, we need to be true to the characters and tell a good story.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's like that like toxic woke thing is like I'm all about being inclusive. I feel like people think that it's so extreme. Either like, oh, everything's got to be so woke and you're forcing it down my throat, or everything has to be whitewashed. And it's like, dude, there's a lot of gray there. You know what I mean? It's
There's
like,
already stories
cast-
that fit everything.
Yeah,
you don't
but
you don't
also
have
it's
to
like,
over
cast
exemplify.
whatever character, no matter what their race or gender might be, cast the characters. The best person for the job gets the
Who
job.
plays the part?
Who plays the part the
conveys
best?
all the
The
emotion,
emotions, the
the
personality,
facial expression?
It's a fucking fantasy book, bro. Who gives a fuck if your elf, what color your elf is, or what color your hobbit is,
How high?
or,
like
or
the
if
height?
it's a girl or a guy? Who gives a fuck? Certain characters I understand, right?
Yeah.
Galadriel has to be a woman, right? It because of how her story goes, because of her backstory, because of her future story, and I'm talking Rings of Power. So future story being Lord of the Rings, backstory being
Rings of Power.
Silmarillion stuff. Yeah, like she needs to be a woman, right? But she could be any kind of woman. It could be
Right.
whatever woman fits the job best. Whatever woman.
Whatever brings the
invokes
character to life
feeling.
the most.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should be like an extensive casting. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you should literally go like what they did the theater, go all the way up, because usually this is what I say this. Usually theater and voice acting, when it comes to a very expressionate character that faces a range of a lot of emotions, I always say, go back to your theater majors, because and go back to your voice actors, because voice actors are literally in a room by themselves trying to bring these characters to life, trying to imagine somebody who cannot see but can hear and comprehend the emotion and what a character is going through. Like the extensive method that they have to do to act to get these roles are insane.
Mhm.
Same way with theater. You know, the difference between theater and voice acting is voice acting does not get a round of applause at the end of the performance. They don't know if you like it or not.
That's true.
Unless they're on social media and facing like
Right.
all the scrutiny, they don't get it until they go to a convention and see how much it's made a difference. And some of those people take 20 to 30 years before they see that.
Wow.
Imagine doing a performance and acting your whole heart out for like 10 years on a show and not knowing if you made a difference to 20, 30 years later.
It's wild.
No,
That is
that's your
crazy.
round of applause. You got to wait 2 to 3 decades for your round of applause. It's insane to me. So it's like theater. So theater, you got to be able to convey these emotions on the spot. Live theater, there's no redos. There's no retakes. That's why it's live.
You only get one shot.
You only get one shot
Yeah,
to be able to
One
convey
opportunity.
what you got. Anyway, you got to be able to convey these. You know what I mean? And I feel like with Hollywood, there's so many things where cut, redo. But when you go
I
through
feel like people
live,
get comfortable.
they're
with that.
so comfortable because they're like, I can only I'll give you my 50 today, but that's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
Like, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So you get like a mediocre capture of the character. Where if you go to
Recast.
theater, when it's live and you see the
You
range
got to bring it.
that these people do, I mean, that's it. Like Rings of Power, the story is, the way that they adapted the story to the TV show is trash. But the theatrical performances of these veteran characters,
The veteran characters.
that's why I said, I
There's
specifically
hate
said
here.
veteran
That's the
characters.
hate.
That is what sold me to it.
Mm.
That is where their cinematic approach is. Because you can see where they cut down the budget with the battles and that sort of thing. But it was the veteran actors' theatrical performance that they captured on screen is literally what sold it. So
I
that's when
agree.
I told you, I said, Rings of Power, if you're true to the books, you're not going to like it. I remember telling you that a month
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
I said, but if you look at it from a cinematic,
Yeah.
theatrical point of view,
I can appreciate
the veteran actors killed it.
some of them. I can appreciate some of them. Elendil, I want to shout out to him. Fantastic. I love him. He's great. I'm excited to see where they go with him. Galadriel, I'm sorry. I'm not a fan.
Well, every
The-
time that I talk
the
about it,
male-
I write her off. So
well,
like
it's
she's
not just her. The male elf that's featured, that's helping all the humans in the
The
Southlands.
Legolas dude.
I
kinda
don't
dude.
like him. He has one expression. Sorry.
they
Again,
wanted it that way.
I'm not trying to be overly critical, but it's just ridiculous to me
They
if you're
should've
going to
just-
get so much emotion and range from all of the other elves, but this one is
The stoic.
he's always just why do you need to poop? Like, bro, I'm sorry, but and then also the woman.
He's been in a
is
lot
it
of
Bronwyn?
movies though.
Is it Bronwyn?
It is
her name?
Bronwyn.
Yeah.
I don't care for her character. I just kind of hate this, like, I'm growing up in my village, but all of a sudden I'm gonna lead
Save
everybody
everyone.
and everyone listen to me. I'm gonna rally us together. Like, I just don't like this, like, I don't know.
You're like,
It's
"Who are
just
you?"
It's a little much. Her son, I give him a pass because he's supposed to be
He's a bitch boy.
stupid. Yeah, like he's supposed to be young and dumb. You know who I love from the humans? Waldrig. I love him. The old guy.
Yes.
I fucking love him, dude.
You
He's
have a
so-
thing for old guys.
I love an old grouchy man.
I mean,
Dude,
Gandalf
he's
is old.
fantastic.
I love
though.
an old grouch, bro. He's great. He's such a good
She's
like
so for Oscar the
lackey.
Grouch.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Hang on. Elmo in Grouchland, the best thing to ever come out of Sesame Street. I will die on that hill.
Mm.
I will argue with anyone about it.
Who's your favorite Sesame Street character?
Definitely Oscar.
Mine's Cookie Monster.
I think Oscar is just because he was just.
So chaotic.
You could just tell that he's just fucking had it with everyone. Like I don't
He's
care.
like Squidward.
I
Get
don't
off
wa-
my land.
I don't want to
Get off my land.
Get off my porch. He's just very much like, I'm over you all. I don't want to live by your standards. I like my fucking trash can. Fuck off.
Can you imagine if they let Oscar cuss. That would be incredible.
You know what? There's
It
got to
would be
be
more like the Muppets, bro.
There's
That'd be
got to
like
be
the two
Yep.
old guys,
Yep.
Oh, the
that,
two
the
old dudes?
hecklers in
Yeah.
the Muppets.
Dude, they've got to have some like ad lib version. Like Team 4-Star needs to get on this, like to do some like
That would be
abridged
so
version.
rad.
But like he is like I didn't really like that was like. I mean, I really didn't get. I was pretty old like with this stuff, right? So
Oh, it was prime Sesame Street age.
when I was like,
Sesame Street's been going on for a minute though.
Love
A
Sesame
it was
long
nothing I
time.
ever got to watch. I mean, I was
That's
watching.
because you lived in the country.
I was watching Pokemon and like Dragon Ball and shit. So my
love-
grandma had
love
no
Pokemon.
idea. My father's mother had no idea what she was recording. She just thought it was cartoons. So she would record them on VHS. So when I was over for the weekend, she didn't know what to do with me. She just anyway.
We only
in
had
front of the TV.
Unless I was going to etiquette school and copying Bible verses, practicing my handwriting.
Sense.
that totally makes sense.
Because she would make me on Sundays after Sunday school. I had to sit at her little lollipop bar and I had to copy verses, Bible verses, on a yellow legal notepad, which appraisers always have.
Catholic?
No. And
Baptist?
no. And we actually had to write it out
What were
because she
you?
said a woman has no value except for to marry higher to bring wealth into the family and to practice proper writing etiquette.
Damn.
You are to be a hostess when needed. Your
Shit.
handwriting should be impeccable. You should be very mannerful, to speak not spoken. You need to be within under 110 pounds. Like she was very scrutinizing. So her and I did not have a good relationship, obviously.
Reasonable.
She didn't like that I was just like, the fuck is your problem? So she forgot who my mother was, bitch. That's why she hated my mother and vice
Damn,
versa.
y'all.
So it was just, I mean,
Sounds like she wrote Project 2025.
right?
Shit.
She did. So it was
Damn.
like
Yeah,
very
right
much
there.
Handmaiden's Tale. I saw that. Very much Handmaiden's Tale version. So
Oh,
like,
Project 2025.
let's not talk about that. Anyway, carrying on as you chug the wine. So it's just one of those things where it's sorry for where we're going with this, but yeah, she recorded because she thought it was like cartoons that they're cute little animals, like it's fine. But I literally would binge fucking watch fucking Pokemon and Dragon Ball, and I was
Dude,
obsessed.
Baby Goku is so unhinged. I love me some Kid Goku. Unhinged. Dragon Ball's my favorite of like all of the.
Yep.
We were
Dragon
so
Ball
poor.
Z,
We only
Dragon Ball
had
Super,
2 channels, and PBS was one of them. So
Dragon
We had 7 and
Tales.
10.
It's after your time.
Sesame
had
Street. I've seen Dragon Tales.
Yeah, your kids.
I like
Well,
Dragon
we
Tales.
did
No,
too
no.
young.
I've
I
seen
love
Dragon
Dragon
Tales.
Tales. But like PBS was on channel 3 and we didn't get it. Like we maybe got it like if your rabbit ears were
Did she have
a
to tweak
certain
the
way.
rabbit ears?
Yeah, we had to put aluminum foil and shit on it because the TV was in the basement. But my grandmother
Oh.
had power. We didn't. Like we didn't have running water or electricity, so don't get me started. So because my father's parents
Damn,
hated
son.
my mother so much that and my parents got married so early that they literally there was this old Amish house that was on the farmland and they were like, here, there you go. There's a
Hmm.
house for you to stay in. So yeah, I had dirt floors as a kid. Like we would just lay down plywood and shit. Had a wood stove in the middle of it and like
That
roughed
explains
it.
a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Savage bitch.
Savage. Savage land.
Right.
Ireland.
Basically. So I would like when we went to her house, it was like, TV. And I would just
Cable. Ah.
No, well,
no
we-
cable. No
so
cable.
7 and 10, those were like our 2 local
Oh, Channel
channels.
7, Channel 10.
PBS was on 3 and you really didn't get it unless you like
Tweaked the rabbit
literally
ears.
like tweaked it with
Mhm.
aluminum foil. Aluminum.
Aluminum.
But we used 3 for auxiliary to do the like Nintendo system. Like that's where you would plug in the auxiliary cables. Like I knew where those cables went in. I can match the yellow, white, and red, 100%. Start up that. Oh man, I was so excited when I got Nintendo Super System. I was like, yes, an NES. I'm on it.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it was definitely Pokemon.
Okay.
Spiel.
I think we need to
Spiel?
do we need to ask the Tiz.
Oh,
I have some
God.
Ask the
Oh,
Tiz
God.
questions.
God.
This'll
You
be
know-
this'll be good for
no,
you
we're
too.
gonna do Ask the Tiz, and then I'm gonna get called out on fucking TikTok because these are for entertainment. The Ask the Tiz portions are where Carlos asked me questions comparing 2 characters whatever supernatural strength or whatever fuckery they have with them, and I give a comic answer to it, like a comedic value, does
Tis
not
answer.
associate anything with any comics, movies, video games, because I fucking read them, seen them, watched them all. So shut the fuck up on TikTok. There's your disclaimer. So now to the comedy.
All right. This is for both of you.
Oh God.
Gandalf
Oh, here we go.
versus Dumbledore.
Gandalf.
Why?
Because Gandalf is an angel and Dumbledore is a man. Done.
What if Dumbledore is Gandalf in the Harry Potter world?
He's not.
He
How do you
could
know?
be.
But he's not.
He's got a death spell.
He has a death spell.
Kill Gandalf.
Gandalf is a legit angel.
But he dies.
And there's
In the
he's sent
universe.
back.
But Dumbledore dies and he doesn't get sent back.
Exactly. Because he is not immortal. He does not have an
I
immortal
don't
soul.
know. I don't know. Logically, I want to say Gandalf.
It's the only answer.
Dumbledore.
Oh my God.
Well, I still think Dumbledore is.
Dumbledore can turn Gandalf into a frog and he lives as a frog
And
forever.
Gandalf can turn Dumbledore into a pile of ash. He is only allotted. What are we talking? Like Gandalf at full capacity? Or are we talking like?
Gandalf the White.
Gandalf the Grey.
Well, not
No, no,
even.
Gandalf the Grey
Like
Books or movies?
versus Dumbledore.
yeah, I have money on Gandalf 100%. He is an angel. He is not a human. Dumbledore is a human. He might
He's a
have
wizard.
death
A
spell.
wizard versus an angel.
Yeah. He's got a death spell. A death spell.
That we know of. What if he had more?
I don't
He
think
probably
they do.
does. He probably has a lot.
Well, he can't
Why
tell
I don't
you
know.
because he's
Talk
dead
about it.
and he's not allowed to come back.
You just a voodoo dude, you know? And Gandalf would be like,
I love how
he would
passionate you
literally-
feel about
He
this.
would
This
be
is
like,
great.
your wand is broken. Bam.
Do you
and he
think?
would
Do you
break
think?
his
Do
wand.
you think Dumbledore could take on a Balrog?
No.
Get toasted.
Dumbledore barely was able to get the fucking Horcrux shit going on. You kidding me? He could barely. That was destroying him as he was destroying the Horcruxes. You think he's going to destroy a Balrog? A literal demon? Bitch couldn't take down Voldemort.
Thou who shall not be
He
named.
didn't even have a nose.
What do y'all think? It's a good one. It's a good one. We. So
I don't
are we
think it's
saying? So
Gandalf.
what are you saying? You're saying Gandalf?
I'm gonna have to.
Without a doubt. Put some respect on his name.
Ooh, respect on his name.
Ooh,
Yeah, I've
saucy.
got to go with Gandalf too. Like I think.
What
that's
else you got?
Hold on. This
Oh,
one's going to be
oh, but wait,
contentious.
there's
This one's
more.
going to be
He says.
contentious for you.
Contentious.
What?
Yes.
Why me? What did I do?
Legolas
Oh God.
Ooh.
versus Dritz.
Oh, Dritz.
Who is that?
Dritz.
Dritz.
From.
You can't ask me this because you're literally telling me to pick Dritz
I don't know.
versus Orlando Bloom, man.
Who is this?
He's a dark elf.
From.
The R.A. Salvatore books. He's D&D.
Oh, I can't comment on this because I don't.
No.
I knew I would get you. I
This
knew I would
is
get
wrong.
you. I knew
this is wrong.
This is just. I just
Dritz
incited her. I just incited
is
her.
from Mesopotamia,
I just
which is from
incited
the
her.
Forgotten Realms.
The
Let's pull up
Forgotten
a
Realms.
map here. One of these books
I knew I
has
was
a
gonna
map. I
incite.
know this is gonna
I
be
just
it.
had to do it. I just had to do it. So
He's not from D&D.
I know
D&D
he's
is
not
based.
from D&D.
He's a dark drow.
He's from D&D.
Yes. Who comes from a race that are literally
He's from the D&D universe.
because he's a dark drow.
He's Drow.
Do you know how he came about?
God, I love this argument.
Do you know how he came about?
How did
Do
he
you know
come
how
about?
Dritz came
How
about?
did he come about?
I don't.
Let me tell you the story. R.A. Salvatore, I love Bob. He loves to tell the story. So,
She feels about R.A. Salvatore and Dritz like the way you feel about Tolkien.
okay, so the stuff of Forgotten Realms, like these guys that put all together the different series, authors,
It's
they were
all
doing this
part of
thing.
D&D.
Oh, just hold it here. You don't even know how Mesopotamia came about. So let me school you really quick.
Okay, I need to get schooled.
I mean, Bob will probably tell you this better himself, but I've talked to him a lot. Every book is signed to me. Like he signed my Dritz D&D board game. Like let's have a conversation.
Did you hear what you just said? Dritz D&D board game.
I-
I win.
No, you're derailing the conversation. Here
I'm
we
in
go.
the line of fire. I would
Here we
like
go.
for you to
Here we go.
retract your
Here we go.
statements.
So they wanted to bring R.A. Salvatore into the Forgotten Realms to bring
Mhm.
his stories to life,
Brought
right?
him into yes. Keep going.
Will you just enjoy the story and just shut the fuck up for a second? Okay, thank you. All right, I'm the teacher. You're the student. This is time to
Tell me the
silencio.
story.
Yes,
I'm
mistress.
listening.
Yes, mistress. I would listen.
Damn right you will. So they had a conference call. So he would say that like they had a phone in the middle of this table and they had him on speakerphone and he was talking about it. Well, they had a map of the Forgotten Realms
Mhm.
and they were trying to find where he was like, okay, what about this area between here? And they're like, oh, it's already spoken for because they were trying to map out which author was getting which section of the Forgotten Realms maps and like the universes and stuff. Well, basically, the whole map was taken, the whole map. And he's like, well, where do you want me to, where can I write this, put this story together? Like, where is my section to do this? And they're like, well, you tell us. And he's like, how about this this little island up top over here on this map? And they're like, wait, what? And it was an ink drop. It was a part of the printing. And it was just some ink that got on the page. And he's like, has anyone claimed that? And they were like, no. And he's like, that's Mezzobaranza. So they were like, what's going on with this? And he's like, this is where the dark elves, the drow are going to be. They're going to worship the Loth Queen. Like he went on this whole thing and like did this with this drow ranger. So it's dominantly a society that's ran by women.
Mhm.
So the women control everything. They pick a male, they produce with the male, and then he's the concubine that does something in the household for him, whether he's the trainer, the weapons training, does something
He's a
else.
servant.
He's a servant. So think of like bees, right? Queen bees. So you have the Loth Queen. So they're like spidery dark elves. And they worship their Loth Queen. So she's like the queen of spiders. And they, the whole thing, they live completely underground. It's all dark. It's like this tunneling system, right? So anytime that you have a son, you're supposed to sacrifice him to the Loth Queen. He's not supposed to exist at all.
And how do they have men in their society?
Well, the firstborn,
Oh,
like the
okay,
firstborn
okay, okay.
male. So Dritch was supposed to be sacrificed. Okay. So he ends up not being sacrificed because, like, his dad, which he didn't know at the time, is obviously the weapons training for this house, like, literally was like, hey, dude, like, I'm going to train him. We're not going to, like, anyway, he got derailed. He wasn't sacrificed, right? Which
Okay.
always kind of affected, like, they blame anything with the house to do with the fact that he wasn't sacrificed, right? But he was allowed an exception. So he goes into be this whole badass fighter, like, takes down everything, like, ungodly tier, like, just fucking magical. And so R.A. Salvatore had 5 minutes to pitch the whole realm of Dritz and this whole area of Mezzobaranza to the Forgotten Realms to see if they would approve his story, which ended up being initially 13 books. It became 13 books, and now there's so many different side stories and stuff to it where he's away from Mezzobaranza. He's out journeying, he's visiting, the dwarves, and he's going, for mithril and like all this other stuff. Like he journeys into all this other stuff, which goes back to like the Tolkien kind of the races with the elves and that sort of thing. So it's super fucking cool.
So bringing
which
it back.
he comes back from D&D. I get it, but it goes back to the fantasy realm. But if you ever want to know how Mezzobaranza came about, how Dritz came about, it literally was a 5-10 minute on the speakerphone, or else Salvatore just pulling it out of his ass, just some random fucking thing. And that is literally, the rest is all in the books.
And this character is a badass, I'm assuming?
He's a
badass.
he's a
Let me
ranger.
show you. Let me show you. It's fucking great. I'm obsessed. Slightly.
Look at what you did.
I triggered.
So,
This is your fault.
It is.
oh, well,
Y'all gonna love this.
so
I'm scared.
I actually have Magic the Gathering came out, the Dungeons and Dragons. This is Dritz,
Ooh, shiny. Yep.
right? Now, you see where I'm going with this now, right? So Dritz
Sure do.
had a companion, similar to World of Warcraft. They have a companion because he's a ranger. So he had Guinevere, and Guinevere is a Black Panther.
I like that.
So he has a black cat.
That's sexy.
Like every trauma, everyone has a black cat, right? So,
I don't appreciate that.
hey, we work with the trauma.
I have
right?
2. What does
Right?
that mean?
So do I.
I do too. I have 2 black cats.
So, like, there's these, like, battle scenes. So this is Spine of the World.
Is that him?
No, these are, like, once he goes to fight against.
Is that him?
No, he's a dark elf, but there's more of them like this. We can be here for days. I can show you the world.
What did I do?
Shining, shimmering.
Splendid.
But yeah, he's definitely badass, man. This is the Orc King. This is another side story.
Oh, I do like that.
So yeah, I figured you'd be into this. If you got to read these books, which I will happily loan you at any given time,
I can't read.
they make audiobooks. Oh, and just so you know, one of my good friends' voice is Dritz. So Jason Charles Miller, shout out to him.
Voices him in what?
He does an actual the
Like in the audiobook?
some of the audiobooks, and he does like the online game.
Cool.
So
Neat.
So bringing it around, Legolas.
Dritz.
Versus
I forgot
Dritz.
who you even compared it to, but it's definitely going to be Dritz.
She sounds really knowledgeable, so I'll second that.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know enough to make an argument.
Okay.
I know that Legolas is really badass, but all elves are badass. Minnie's particularly badass.
He is particularly
Legolas-
badass.
But it sounds like this guy also has trauma. So,
he's incredibly sexy.
yeah,
Sharp jawline, very fierce.
just from the few things I've seen, I'm going to have to agree.
So you're agreeing because he's badass,
Sexy.
sexy, badass, and has trauma.
He wields two swords,
Just
And,
like
and he
me.
wields two swords.
and he has. A
I
black
also
cat,
can wield two swords.
and he has a Black Panther.
I also have that. Yes,
Yes.
I have one, and then one that kind of fell off the wagon a bit.
Mhm.
Yes, I will agree.
So I think Legolas,
Next
in
question.
the term of like elves, the high elves, I think he's very talented in the field that he is in. However, I feel like it's kind of one dimensional, whereas Dritz has so many across the spectrum. Not that spectrum.
Can
It's the spectrum.
Dritz wield magic?
He can do anything.
Ooh.
I mean, you should read it when he gets a hold of the mind flayers. I'm just gonna say, there are some battle scenes in there where I'm like, hello, and you should see when he gets his companions, Wolfgar. That was Wolfgar in the book, just to let you know. The one cover, you're like, is that him? Nope, that's Wolfgar. That's another companion travel buddy.
We like that. Very
Yep.
good. Very good.
Yep.
We stand for him.
And what I love about Ari Salvatore is they have Canterbury in there, which is another companion of Dritz that he picks up along the way. She's a female. Now, she later becomes in the books a love interest to Wolfgar. However, Ari Salvatore does not take away her value and makes her still to be a strong lead with things. So very admirable to Bob for doing that one, because he leaves the females to be strong. He's not intimidated by it. So it was, we all fall into fandoms, because of things like you got into it because of your dad and stuff. I actually had a friend I worked with, bartending and stuff. I had lost my parental guardian at the time and was having a hard time kind of adjusting to life because she was, my grandmother was very young, and I was on suicidal watch. And she was like, you know what? You need some fantasy in your life. And she's like, what do you think of dark elves? And I'm like, dude, they're like cool. But I had been bullied my whole life for liking that shit. So I was like, I'm not really going to strike up a conversation with you, Tina. Sorry. And she literally hands me the book on, which is Homeland. And she's like, just read this. Like, just read it. And I'm like, well, you're handing me a book. So that gives you brownie points. I didn't sleep that night. I read the whole fucking thing. And I was like, where can I get book 2?
Mm.
It literally just saved me. Like, I've never just
That's why.
fallen in love with a series of a lead who had been through so much shit and overcome so much shit and still found a way to persevere and press forward than the way that it is with Dritz. Like, it was just amazing to me. So you can imagine, I have never, ever fangirled over meeting anyone in my life. Anyone. And I've worked with some of the top big celebrities, and it's always been like, that's cool. Like, that's a cool moment. Like, cool, awesome, this is cool. Like, that's what I think. I did one time, and this is how it started. I was at Barnes & Noble in Huntington Beach, because that's where I lived around the area at the time with work. And I went into Barnes & Noble just to get, quick read. And they had a flyer up at the cashier, and it said, meet R.A. Salvatore. And I was like, shut the fuck up. That's literally what I told the lady. She looked at me, she goes, what? I was like, shut the fuck up. He's going to be here? And she was kind of taken back, and then she giggled, and she was like, well, yeah. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And she just like looked at me, and I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, I have never met an author in my life. I have never gone to a book signing in my life. I didn't even know what this was. I just knew he was going to be at this store and he was meeting people. So I was like, he meets people? What the fuck? What do I do? Because I had never worked with any. This is before working
Tell
with.
me.
Tell me what I need to
This
do
is
to
like
meet this guy.
before, and he's like working with celebrities or before
Right.
any of that stuff. So like, we're actually like working
You were
with
just a
him on the
fan.
weekend. So I was just like, this is cool. What? He answers questions. Like, what the hell? Like, I was excited. And my poor best friend at the time was looking at me like, holy fucking shit, what is going on? Because
You
normally
weirdo.
I'm composed, right?
You just nerded out.
Right. And so it was like, I had to fly. I was gone with work, and I had to like ask work if I could come back a day early, like cut the project just so I could get there in time. So I was like, okay, all right. Well, it says he'll sign one thing on the flyer. And I'm like, well, I don't want him to sign a mass paper book, like a mass book, like it's because those small, thick ones, like mass paperback. I was like, that just feels cheap, you know. I was like, well, I have this Dritz D&D board game. This thing is massive. Okay, that's what she said, and I was like, they said he would sign one thing, right? My dumbass goes to this book signing, carrying this fucking game, and it's 2 stores, so I got to go up an escalator carrying this fucking game, going like, wow. And then it dawned on me when he was like talking through his stuff, and I'm sitting in the chair, and I sat all in the back because I was like embarrassed, right? Just embarrassed to be there because I was like, this is so just out of my norm. I just don't do this shit. Like, this is weird. Like, why am I getting emotional about him answering questions
Aw.
on a book? Like, this is stupid, right? Holding this fucking board game while my best friend looks at me going, this fucking bitch is weird.
What am I
Right?
doing here?
What the fuck? You're carrying a board game. Everyone else has a book. What's going on here? Like, I didn't know. And so like I waited till the end. Like, I was the last person, and I was like, I already bought your book yesterday. I said, but I really wanted to know if you would sign my board game. And he was just like, yeah, no one's brought me this to sign yet. And I was like, really? And I was just like, cool. And I was like, and you know what? The most sincerest, stupid thing, because everyone thinks I'm a cunt, but I'm really sincere and genuine. And I was like, I just want to say thank you. And he like was writing, and he like stopped, and he was like, what? And I was like, I just want to say thank you. And he was like, for? And I said, for creating this world, for creating Dritz. I said, because I know people just write stuff because they have an idea or they're creative or passionate about storytelling of something. I said, but in the context of what you wrote this character and the battles internally and physically, externally, what he goes through and the thought process behind it, I said, really resonated with me at a time where it was very, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but my well-being was on the line. And I said, following Dritz and waiting to see if Dritz finishes his journey and gets to where he's going and how he persevered, I said, literally saved me. And I said, I just wanted to say thank you, because I'm not sure as an artist or as an author what you had to go through to get these books printed for your story to be heard. And I said, I just want to say thank you, because it's probably not an easy battle given the nature of the context of it being a fantasy book, but thank you. And I'm like, I get it out without stuttering, but I am full on tears rolling down,
my God.
right through this thing. Like, it's not like a
I'm
hiccup.
sure if I was the author, I would be
It's
fucking
not
crying,
like a
bro.
hiccup cry, but
I'd
it
be
was like
fucking
one of those where
crying.
someone stared at you, like no hiccup, just very sincere, but you just see a tear roll down. And he literally starts getting teary-eyed, and he said, thank you. He said, I started,
Cry.
Dritz saved me. I was starting these books when my brother died, and he put me through the thing. So we're fucking bawling, right? I'm like, this is not how I want to meet, like, my
My
favorite
heart.
author. Like, this is not how I want to do this.
Oh my god.
And till this day, poor Bob. Every time he did his store signing after that, I would just be like, hey, I'm picking up the new one. Like him and his wife Diana, they're just amazing. And like anytime like he did New York Comic Con, I left the booth. And I'm like,
Because
I'm
you want
gonna
to
go
go see him.
sign.
Yeah.
I missed him this last year at New York Comic Con because I was on a flight and I couldn't get there in
Oh.
time. And there was just no earlier flights. But like every store signing, every time a new book comes out, he
You're
signs
there.
it to me, and like, I'll get it mailed. Like I'll have like Diana mail it to me. Like all these are signed. It's just a way to just support, just because like, it's just
He touched your soul.
Yeah.
he
That's so
touched me in
cool.
places, but I mean, like
Consensually.
spiritually, but it's just like one of those things where it's just genuine, because you don't know when these people are writing these stories what they've had to go through, like what
Right.
they put their the family on the line, like whatever they had to challenges and trivials that they had to do to get these books out. Who knows with Tolkien, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where I don't feel like they hear thank you enough. I feel like they hear a lot of scrutiny or criticism,
Or why.
or they bring their viewpoints, political or whatever, into the thing. And I feel like you just don't accept good storytelling, and just genuinely like thank you for it. And that's what I want to do. Like if I could tell anything to anyone, in that moment, it was just to say sincerely, thank you for whatever you had to go through to make sure these saw light.
Yeah.
Because they touch people when they need them the most. And I was one of them.
Oh, that's amazing. That
So
is
it's just
amazing.
super fucking cool like that. So when people are like, "Oh, you like Dritz," I'm like,
Hey,
"There's,
you don't
there's a
you don't
logical
know.
reason
You don't
for
know
it."
why I like Dritz.
You know what I mean?
Well, fuck, in that case, Dritz wins.
Legolas ain't got shit on that. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, you know what?
It's the passion for me.
It,
Sold.
Sold,
would,
done,
it would
done.
be different if like I had met Tolkien and Legolas
Yeah.
had some like backstory that I resonated with, and he like explained it. Like if it was the same scenario, then yeah, it would have been Legolas.
Yeah.
But because the facts that Dritz is who Dritz is and what it means to me at a time where I needed,
Yeah,
I couldn't run to my family. I had no support. I had
I
nobody.
know.
I had nothing. I had nobody, no support, no animals.
That's what books
no
are for a lot of
nothing.
people.
And I literally had
Mm-hmm.
Dritz and Guinevere. I'm like, I want a fucking Black Panther now. I just got one.
The written
it's
word is
just
so
like-
powerful.
It really
is so
is.
powerful.
It really is.
And how they convey emotion
Mm.
through all of it, right?
Dude, in those
It's
sword
incredible.
fights, I could just imagine things. So, like, if I'm ever thinking of like, I'm like, unless you like match up to Dritz level, I mean, that's like husbando.
I don't think
material.
anybody can for you.
Dude.
That's like God tier.
Yeah. if you can try, I'm all for it. But yeah, dude, that's just fucking fantastic. No, I want a panther.
It's powerful.
Right?
And on that note,
Not to get emotional, but Dritz would fucking shred Legolas. Just saying.
on that note, that
Legolas
concludes
ain't
our
got a
podcast,
panther.
y'all.
Thank you, Katy LaGray.
Thank you, Katie. You're
for coming in,
amazing.
being
You know
our-
so much about the Tolkien universe.
Dude,
I
I
love
want
it.
to know. I feel
I'm
like
sorry.
Fantastic.
I'm operating on sick brain, so I
Well-
should have brought my notepad of names because
It's
there's
okay.
just so fucking many of them.
We'll have you on again.
we
Sounds
have to do
good.
this again. Laura, I feel like there's so much more we can do in Tolkien, and I feel like,
You have to get me when I finish Rings of Power season 2,
oh god,
but then give me like a month to mourn, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
you know what? I think there should be a part 2 to this. I think
Sure.
the Tolkien universe is so rich in detail. We're not going to talk about the Rings of Power, but we can actually get your feedback from because the directing is different on season 2, halfway through.
Okay.
It goes back to the first director mid through season 2. So
Okay.
as far as a cinematic, it goes back to
Katie's humoring
somewhat
you.
stable. The veteran actors save it. Just look for the veterans. Don't look for leads. You'll be fine.
Okay.
She's like, I'm gonna fucking cry.
I have.
Tears will be shed.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you
y'all.
guys for watching.
Thank
Until
you
next
so
time,
much.
Don't forget to like, sub, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Definitely sub.
Come stalk us.
Bye.